It is the 16th of May of 2017, and the Lord's given us another day to enjoy, and we are glad to see each and every one of you all here this morning. We will begin our meeting this morning with prayer. I will ask Brian Jarvis. He is the director at the Rush Street Ministries to please come forward and to open us in prayer. I will ask you to stand as you are able. Good morning, sir. Microphone is yours, Brian.
Great God, this is a day that you have made, and we will rejoice and be glad in it. To count our blessings would take too long, Father, but you sure do take care of us. And a great blessing we have, God, is we got enough to eat today, and we thank you for that. We take that for granted a lot. I know I do. But, Father, thank you that we live in a town that this isn't just a third world country. This happens here, and people care, and they have servant hearts, and it's an honor to be here. Thank you for living in the United States of America, the greatest country on earth. And again, thank you for St. Angelo, Texas, a place that has a heart and people truly do care. Our leaders today, Father, are going to do city business. Ask you to give them peace and rest, to take care of their families, to provide for their families, just spiritual wisdom, Father, to do what's right. I know they will. And God, we just want to do our best to make their work and their service to our town a blessing, not a burden. Again, thank you. We love you, and we just commit to you everything we've got. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Let's get a picture, Brian. And to do our musical talent for today, I have Mr. Joseph Cortese. And Joseph has agreed to sing our national anthem. So please give Joseph your full attention as he sings our national anthem. You're on, sir.
Thank you. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming. And the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Because that makes your eyes water every time I hear it. Thank you, Joseph. Haley and Tegan Self, would y'all please come forward? Come down, Marty. Come over, Joseph. These two little dears are the grandchildren of Marty Self, and they have agreed to help us with our pledge this morning. You ready? Okay, come in, Joseph.
Come up here.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And the Texas flag.
Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
We need to take Where you want? Okay, come in. Don't tell me to stand up again. Got some more. Thank you, children. We appreciate you so much. We do have a few and by the way, Joseph went to state, was it last year or the year before, with Central High School? This past year, went to state with Central High School. There was 2 students that went to the state choir, all-state choir. And now that I've heard you sing that again, I know exactly why you were there. Thank you so very much thank you for being with us today. Would the Shattered Dreams team please come forward? I have a recognition for you. Are y'all the whole entourage? Well, bring them all. Good morning. Good morning. Just anywhere you can get up here. The return of Shattered Dreams to San Angelo, Texas was eye-opening, and it was powerful. Shattered Dreams is a school-based program that promotes responsible decision-making amongst high school students regarding underage drinking and impaired driving. It does so by showing teens how irresponsible choices can end theirs and also others' dreams. The local planning team, made up of the many local and area organizations, both public and private, sought to create a different sort of Shattered Dreams experience in which students were fully immersed in a visual experience that combined a short film and a live element. The stars of that effort were San Angelo Central High School students Haley Castle and Mateo Guerrero, and Lakeview High School students Gabriela Ramirez and Manuel Rodriguez. During the event, Foster Communications Coliseum was so silent that one could have heard a pin drop. Afterward, one student tweeted, "I have no words for how powerful that assembly was and how truly grateful it is to be living this very moment and hopefully many more." Mission accomplished. Therefore, I, Dwayne Morrison, the mayor of the city of San Angelo, on behalf of the city council, do hereby recognize and applaud the Shattered Dreams planning team for their achievement and positive determination to make a difference in our community. Who receives this? Amy? You're Amy?
Thank y'all. We were really excited to be able to do this for the high school seniors. We not only did it for the San Angelo students, but we did it for all surrounding areas. So the applause goes to the members of our planning committee and our students that were able to make this happen. We were able to get the event funded by the Concho Valley Regional Advisory Council, which made this possible. And so we're just hoping that the seniors that were able to attend the event really think about their choices when it comes to drinking and driving and distracted driving. And that was our main goal. And hearing the tweets and hearing from students, I really think it did affect them. And we're already hearing different choices that are being made, even when it came to a party that weekend right after the event. So I would say that we were very successful, and I mean, it was amazing to be able to work with this team. So applause goes to them.
Hi, my name is Brandon Whitford. I'm the multimedia specialist at Angelo State University, and we just like to thank the community for letting us be involved. Working with this team was awesome. We understand that at Angelo State University that we're a part of this community, and the students in our community are also potential students at our university as well. So I just want to say that it was an honor to be able to give back, be a part of the community. We left San Angelo, and it was an honor working with these teams. If you haven't watched the film, go on YouTube at Shattered Dreams San Angelo and check it out. Thank you.
Anyone else?
We had such a good response to this program, and it went so well, and it seemed to flow so easily for us. We are trying to shape this as a template and a model to be presented statewide. It's a refreshing visit to the Shattered Dreams program, and so we're going to be submitting this to different state levels to see if we can get this program elevated to the state level as well, and that's all due to the fabulous work that this committee did, so thank you.
Get back here to the back and spread out. We need a picture. And we lived the scenario back in 2006, my wife and I did, that was demonstrated in this film. I would encourage everyone to go watch this, have your children watch it, because it's a very powerful message. City of San Angelo Development Awards. Come on up, John. I'm going to turn this over to you, buddy.
Thank you. I'm John James, the Director of Planning and Development Services. We at the city like to recognize outstanding, exceptional design in new developments in our community, and so we have a few awards here to honor some of those new projects, new developments in our community over the last 2 years. Our first is the Architectural Design Award, and this is given to Wall Dentistry at 5138 Knickerbocker Road, and I believe Jason Wall is here to accept the award. And the contractor on that was Ron Reeves Construction. The designer was MPL Designs. We did have an honorable mention in this category, the Neighbors ER facility. This was another example of excellent architecture of a new building in our community. Our next award is the Residential Design Award. This is for an outstanding home design in new construction. The winner this year is 1750 Overhill. The owners, I don't know if they want me to announce the owner, so I won't say that, but the contractor was Decker Custom Homes, and I think Chad Decker is here to accept that award. Our next category is adaptive reuse. This is sustainable design by renovation or creative reuse of an existing building. So rather than new construction, this is taking an existing building and making it something new and better. Our winner this year is the Twisted Root. Owners Lana Mott and Lori Franks are here to accept the award. The contractor on that project was Green Tag Construction, and the architect was Henry Schmidt. We also had a couple of other honorable mentions in that category of our nominations, and I meant to say at the beginning that there was a nominations process. We'll be doing this again next year, so over the coming year, if you have ideas or thoughts of new development in the community, we will be doing this again. But these are a couple of our nominees that received honorable mention: the Performing Arts Center downtown and the Icon Cinema. Our next category is commercial landscape. This is recognizing quality commercial landscaping design in a new or rehabilitated building. Our winner this year is the Harper Funeral Home. A good example of not only excellent landscaping, but xeriscaping, low water use, and that was a factor. This is located on Southland Boulevard. The owners, Jeffrey Dale Harper, is here to accept the award. The contractor on that project was Blanick Construction, the architects John Gary of JST Architects. We had a couple of honorable mentions on this one as well. This award is intended to be for a commercial development, although we did have a couple of nominees for public sector developments, the Bosque in the park by the river, as well as the City Hall Plaza, both of those excellent examples of landscaping added to those facilities. And then our final award is sustainability. This is innovative use of sustainable design or features. And the winner this year is the Saddle Club subdivision. Saddle Club subdivision was designed as an entire subdivision, and every home in the subdivision will have to use a gray water system that will collect water from washing machines, other usable water that will be then recycled into landscaping, irrigation, and those sorts of things. 328 homes in the subdivision, estimated to save, once it's completed, about 52 million gallons of water a year. And I believe Michael Biggerstaff and any of the others of that group are here to accept that award. And while they're coming up, those contractors include Michael Biggerstaff Homes, Kevin Bond of Bond Custom Homes, Adrian Balderas of AB Homes, Chad Decker of Decker Custom Homes, and Eric Von Rosenberg of Von Rosenberg Custom Homes.
Salvation Army, y'all head this way, please. You too, mascot. John, does this stay up here? Okay. You're an active mascot. A love for God and a desire to help others is a motivation behind the men and women of the Salvation Army. The Salvation Army in San Angelo, Texas provides much more than spiritual counseling and basic human necessities to the needing and the hurting on a daily basis. The Salvation Army serves as a symbol of compassion, but more so an active participant in the provision of services to thousands of San Angelo, Texas men, women, and children. The Salvation Army has been providing these programs to residents for over 109 years. The Salvation Army provides its services to people in need without regard to race, color, creed, sex, or age. Now, therefore, I, Dwayne Morrison, Mayor of the City of San Angelo, Texas, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim the week of May 9 through May 15, 2017 as Salvation Army Week. Come here and let's have a speech, Ryder.
Oh, thank you. Yes, since 1901, we have been in San Angelo. It's a long time. And through the years, we've gone through a lot of changes, and we're in the same planning stages, too. I see the beautiful architectural designs for what's coming, and hopefully we will be able to add to that soon down the road as we have begun our plans for our future. And today we unveil our superhero, Captain Kettle. And the full name is Captain Hope Kettle, Captain Hope Kettle. So as you'll see it flying around in the area, you will take advantage and see that. We had a Facebook contest on the Salvation Army's Facebook, and a lot of names came through. My personal favorite was PHIL Phil, me up. But it came out to that Captain Hope Kettle. Our board voted on that, and that was the final say on that one. So we introduced to you Captain Kettle, and you will see it often throughout the coming days and weeks. And today we do have our civic annual meeting at the Performing Arts Center, taking advantage of that venue. And then throughout the week we have specific events, just celebrating the Salvation Army, certainly here in the Concho Valley, for 116 years now. So thank you very much for your support. I'm looking to the future. Thank you, Mayor.
Good for you. Let's get a picture.
Will do.
What do you want, Sandy? $109 years. That's the same time you got on the council, isn't it, Marty? Your first term. The Blues Society, y'all come forward. Without a doubt, this is the coolest group of people in San Angelo, Texas. I'm glad to have y'all here. The San Angelo Blues Society Festival had its modest beginning in 2009 and has progressed in size from a couple of hundred visitors to a crowd of over 10,000 guests in 2013, and it continues to grow each and every year. The San Angelo Blues Society presents the 9th annual Simply Texas Blues Festival to further its mission of preserving and promoting the blues as a historically relevant art form, education of the public, promoting our musicians and venues, and San Angelo, Texas as a blues music oasis. The day-long May Festival serves several purposes within that mission, namely a competition to select a band and a solo duo act to represent San Angelo at the yearly and International Blues Challenge on Memphis's famous Beale Street, a fundraiser for the Society scholarships to local colleges, and a free and a family-friendly concert in historic downtown San Angelo. The festival has brought statewide and national recognition to San Angelo, and its music scene and acts have performed from as far away as Alaska and Canada, as well as our wonderful local musicians. Our headliner acts now feature nationally and internationally known blues artists. Our monetary support is awarded to deserving scholars at local colleges, reaching over $51,000 and counting. Therefore, I, the Dwayne Morrison, Mayor of the City of San Angelo, Texas, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim May the 20th, 2017 as Simply Texas Blues Festival Day. Who's going to take this?
I'd like to begin by saying that 9 scholarships, nine students received $13,500. We were able to divvy up that much money in scholarships to our students for last year's one-day event. And that's really a great privilege for us to be able to do this. Also, you know, this is a lot of work, but it's so very gratifying on the night of the concert to see all the people enjoy such great quality music that is absolutely free, no cover charge. Come in, bring a lawn chair, sit down, enjoy great music under the shade of the famous Cactus Hotel in downtown San Angelo. And I'm really proud of that. Also, I want to tell you our winners we send to Memphis, Tennessee to compete in the International Blues Competition, which will consist of over 150 acts from all over the world. You name it, New Zealand, Australia, Israel, every country you can imagine. And it's an awesome opportunity for our winners. And what I'm really proud of is for the last 4 years, we have sent an act from San Angelo, Texas to the semifinals, competing against these, you know, phenomenal musicians from all over. So we've kind of developed a name in Memphis. People know where San Angelo, Texas is. So, ladies and gentlemen, one last thing. We've got 2 dynamic headliners this year, Michael Lee from Fort Worth, Texas, and Zach Harmon, who is a true international blues star. So come out, bring a lawn chair, and enjoy a great show this Saturday, May the 20th. Thank you.
Just a quick word. Thank you so much for our generous sponsors, businesses around San Angelo and the Concho Valley that make this happen. And we are proud, as Clay has mentioned, to send people to this big competition. We're only one of 3 cities or towns in Texas that do this. So we're right up there with Houston and Austin in terms of music, and we're happy and proud to promote San Angelo as a musical destination. So thank y'all. Y'all come on down, May the 20th.
And it's a marvelous concert, and it'll be going, you start at noon, don't you? And usually get through about 10 or 11 o'clock at night, finish at 11, constant music, bring your lawn chairs set up. The weather's going to be cool. It will be overcast. It's going to be the perfect day for a blues festival. This is the time in our agenda where we allow for public comment. And we allow the public to come forward and to comment on anything you want to comment on. We take good comments and we take bad comments. It makes no difference. This is your opportunity. So let me read the legalities here. Issues or items that are not on the agenda may be raised by the public at this time. Citizens should speak from the podium, begin by stating their name, and limit the remarks to less than 3 minutes. Council members may request that a discussed item be placed on a future agenda. The council takes public comment on all regular agenda items during the discussion of those items. The line forms right here at the front. If you have any comment that you want to make to the council, this is your opportunity. The line forms at the front. If you have any comment, please come forward. Good morning.
I'm Diane Lewis Meek. I just ran into James. He said to let you all know that this is one of the rescue dogs, and she's now my service dog.
Very good.
My problem is my trash has been sitting in the front of my house for a month. I have pictures of the trash. I have a camera that takes shots. Well, I've got several cameras. And the last time they came and got the trash, they picked up the recyclable. There was another big package. I have called them several times, and there was another big package, and it said recyclable on it. They threw it in with the regular trash. And it was the size of a refrigerator would fit in. How am I going to get them? I mean, there's been calls back and forth, and I still can't get them to pick up my trash.
Robert Sarles, are you in the audience still? That's the man.
No.
Bob
Salas.
Salas. Robert Sarles. Robert was here earlier.
Robert Searles.
Mayor, I'll get
Yes.
the information and we'll pass it along to Shane and Jeremy Miller.
Jeremy Miller's the one we need to talk to about this, ma'am. He is the liaison that works for the city. That is a liaison between you and between Trash Away. And that is his job. He is the one that needs to be. Michael, would you get the information from her and get this information to Jeremy?
Yeah,
so
I've
that,
made several calls. I mean, it looks awful. There's these
well,
huge
you made
piles
it public today.
Thank you.
Any further public comment? If there is no further public comment, then I will call close to this part of the agenda. I will go to each of our individual council members, ask if they have any announcements to make, any statements to make, and also if you have anything on this consent agenda that you want to pull and place on the regular agenda. I'll start with you, Mrs. Farmer.
I'd like to pull item D on the consent agenda with reference to the recreational agricultural lease, please.
Okay. Is that all, ma'am?
Yes.
Lane, what you have, sir?
I'd like to pull item F and G.
Ms. Lucy.
I'd like to pull item J.
Harry?
There's enough items already pulled.
I agree with you. Marty?
Well, this is my last meeting, so can I pull all the rest of them?
I really wish you wouldn't.
No, I really don't have any to pull. I do have a comment. Evidently our street department changed the lights on 19th and Chadbourn.
Did.
And our staff does a wonderful job, but they screwed that up. So could they look at it? It's backed traffic up about 2 blocks. So other than that, that's all I got.
Well, I do have one comment to make. My sons told me yesterday that they are throwing a party for me at the Backbeat Music Company that's at 102 North Chadbourn tonight from 6 until 9. There will be snacks, Lucy.
There you go, I'm there.
I'd like for everyone to come out. It's a come and go deal. Come out. If you like me, say hello. If you don't like me, come out and say goodbye. But come out tonight. Backbeat Music. I'd love to see each and every one of you.
Hello, goodbye.
Yeah. If you like me, hello. If you don't like me, goodbye.
But you can't say hello, goodbye.
Yeah, you could.
Okay. I'll be there.
Okay. And that ought to close out our, now we will take care of our consent agenda. Item number D is consider authorizing the city manager to enter into a new 5-year recreational agricultural lease agreement with Ray K. McKim, number 3. This 2428 Fisherman's Road.
Mayor.
Yes, ma'am.
Mayor, we didn't take a motion on the rest of the consent agenda and a vote.
You got
Been
excited.
doing this for 4 years, and I still can't remember that. I will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Move to approve with the exception.
With the exception.
Of
D, F,
F,
G, and
G,
J.
and J.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, I do have a motion and a second to approve it, with the exception of the 4 that have been pulled. Any comments?
Yes, who's been around for 109 years now?
We're not going to talk about that, Marty. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Consider authorizing the city manager to enter into a new 5-year recreational agricultural lease agreement with Ray L. McKim 3, 2428 Fisherman's Road. Ms. Yarder.
I apologize, I meant to ask yesterday, define recreational agriculture. Mr. City Manager.
This one actually is a lease that we have on properties that are either river, lake areas that are actually in floodplain type areas where we actually maintain. We actually go in there and we have staff that clean up those. We do lease those out on areas where you can put a permanent structure, but it is strictly only for a recreational use, really. So there is some water that could be allowed for something you might be growing there, but other than that, there's nothing else you can do on that.
Isn't there a difference in the rate for one for recreational and one for agriculture? I was confused in knowing, what rate are we charging for the lease?
I would like to congratulate Cindy Priest on the birth of her first grandbaby last night, so she's not here with us today. Tina Deersky, Director of Finance. I'll do my best to answer your questions in her absence. The rate is listed on your agenda background. It's $14 per acre, 50 cents per river/lake frontage, and $250 recreation fee.
Okay, so it's not a fee based on recreational, it's just a fee?
They're just able to use that property to enjoy it for their pleasure, and there are no
Personally,
abutting
not to lease out
property
for a
owners.
business.
Correct. You cannot
but
put
it's
any
personally.
permanent
I
structure
just
on
wanted
it.
to clarify that.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, move to approve.
Okay.
Second.
Do you have a motion to approve as presented? I do have a second. Questions, council? Public comment? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Yeah.
Drop a 6-0 on that one, Brian. Item number F is consider ratifying a resolution by COSA, the COSA DC, authorizing the board president to execute a professional services agreement with Park Hill Smith and Cooper Incorporated to perform professional engineering and surveying services for infrastructure for Phase 2 of the San Angelo Business and Industrial Park. What are your questions, Lane?
I just want to know what exactly Phase 2 entails and an update on that.
Before I address that, Mrs. Farmer, may I thank you for the clarification on recreational agriculture. I just came back from Colorado and had a whole different idea about that.
I'll pass that along to my Colorado friends. That's good.
Good one, Bob. Start by stating your name now.
My name is Bob Schneeman. I'm with the city's Economic Development Department. Phase 2 is the about 200 acres immediately north of what is currently developed out at the industrial park. It's also, if you recall, on the master plan area that we had, where we had designated a 100-acre potential development site, 100 contiguous acres. And the way property has been selling, we've decided to kind of relook at that as a part of this contract. But Phase 2 is basically that next phase to the north.
Do we have potential prospects for that, or is this opening up a new ball game to get new ones coming in?
We've actually sold 52 acres out of it already. Okay. So that's part of getting the infrastructure to support that project.
Okay. I'll move to approve.
Motion to approve is presented. Charlotte is seconded. Questions, council? Public comment? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Put a 6-0 on that one. Item G, consider a resolution authorizing the city manager or designee to execute a non-exclusive revocable license agreement with Castello Tres Generaciones, DBA Fat Boss's Pub, for property located at 114 South Chadbourne Street for the encroachment of certain business-related fixtures into the alley right-of-way. Lane?
I had a few people contact me with the intent of this encroachment and what they're going to be using for that area. So can you explain a little bit more exactly what it is and what they'll be doing?
Yeah, they've actually talked to us about two separate encroachments. One is a much larger one for a patio and tables, and this is not that one. This is a simpler one that is just in the rear alley for some kitchen remodeling they're doing. It would install a great grease trap that would be under the alley, so it would be flush with the ground, but because it extends into the alley, it needs this encroachment agreement. Some of the vent hoods from the kitchen will be sticking out the back side of the building a little ways as well. But again, this is not for the larger encroachment that would be into the side alley. That's something that you'll probably be seeing in the coming months, but this is just for the kitchen and the rear alley.
Okay. Awesome. I'll move to approve.
Do I have a motion to approve from Lane? Lucy has seconded. Questions, council? Public comment? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Drop another 6-0 on that one, please, sir. Item J is a second reading and consider adopting an ordinance amending Chapter 9, Parks, Lakes, and Other Public Places of the Code of Ordinances by adding Article 9.05, Camping on Municipal Facility or Public Property, and amending Section 905.005, Recreational Activities, which would prohibit camping at a municipal facility or public right-of-way. What are your questions, Lucy?
I have a question, Mr. Salas. I just wanted to know, can you give us an update on that as far as the people that are down there?
Well, we actually have an assessment team. We call it a group of peer counselors led by Ms. Amanda Cruz from the Public Housing Authority. They've been down there regularly, set up that relationship we talked about, those relationships we talked about last time. There's some success stories. Some folks are taking on case management, and we're helping them through the process. Others have yet to do that. Some have left. We have some new members as well. So a few more are coming in, some are going out, but we're working hard to try to capture as many as we can and help them through the process.
Again, how many people are we talking about now?
I believe Amanda mentioned about 25, and a lot of them are new, yes.
And they are aware about the June 1st?
They are. They're very aware of it. So, and again, our peer counselors are going down there on a regular basis, and it's starting to work a little bit. Of course, we can't make anybody take case management if they don't want to. So,
Exactly. I move to approve.
I'll second.
Motion. I have a motion to approve. I do have a second from Lane. I will now ask for public comment. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Tim Davenport Herbst, and I'm the pastor of St. Paul Presbyterian Church, which is the church probably closest to Tent City and right by Central High School. We started working in transitional living and with homeless folks directly about a dozen years ago. We ended up bringing people onto our property and actually allowing them to transition on our property, living in our building at that time. Out of the 250 or so plus churches that we had around the community, we couldn't find enough to step up to the plate to help share that burden. So we took that on all by ourselves. There were only 4 at that time that were willing to help out with that. It has been wonderful to see so many people in the community come together and start to address this problem. I think the reality is, though, we would not have been addressing this problem if it was not for the Tent City being there. It brought it out into public awareness. People can't avoid it. The problem has been there all along. I want to urge you not to pass this yet because I think it is premature. We are not yet at the point where we have solved this problem, and my fear is when we remove that from the public view, that all of a sudden our energy towards moving towards a solution is going to dissipate.
Beijing when they hosted the Summer Olympics. They were very excited to have it. They thought this was wonderful, and they bulldozed a lot of people's homes that were slums in order to get them out of the public view. And then they pronounced it good, we're a great city, and moved on. I fear we might be doing something similar to that. I don't think that this is a long-term solution, but I do think that this is helpful to continue having it in the public view. We do continue to have a problem. Not all of the solutions that have been talked about are ones that are going to work. Just yesterday, we had one of the members of our church that I've been allowing to live on the church property in his truck, had his truck confiscated, impounded by the city because he had unpaid tickets. That was his place where he lived. He is disabled, he's trying to get assistance, but he doesn't have a permanent address, so he's not eligible for disability. They're trying to work through that, but this is a long process. I want to urge you to think this through and not just consider this finished and done, and we're going to get them off the public right away and away from where we can see it and move on. If you do adopt this ordinance, I want you to make sure that we continue to address this as seriously as we have been. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Do I have further public comment on this?
This would go into effect truly June 1st, right?
That's correct.
Any other questions, council? Daniel?
Mayor, I just want to reassure everyone that this isn't the end of it. You know, we do want to address the current situation, but the discussion with the Homeless Coalition has been to continue working for solutions and a longer-term solution as well. So it doesn't die here. We'll continue those meetings to see what else we can do to help these individuals out as well. We are very thankful for all the participation, the stakeholders that come together and have participated in those meetings. But again, I can reassure everyone that the discussion has been, that it isn't in here. We continue working toward that hopefully long-term solution as well.
Thank you, boss. Harry?
Just a real quick comment. Shout out to Standard Times. Had a very good article this morning on one particular individual that was a success story that was down in Tent City. I think if we keep this out in front of the public, like Reverend Davenport talks about, we will be successful in helping a number of these people transition to better living. And I know that Bob Salas and that particular group is really going to work hard to make sure that happens.
Any other council comments? Any other public comment? Motion has been made that we, and this is a second reading, that we go ahead and accept this ordinance as it has been written. It has also been seconded. I will call for the vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. Put a 6-0 on it. We are now to item number 6, which is old business regular agenda. Item number A is consider adopting a resolution, number 1, to approve the conceptual Chadbourne Street corridor project and the funding mechanisms proposed for the project. Do you want to do them one at a time, Rick? You want me to read all 3 of them? 4 of them? No, just that's one. That's A. That's the only one you want, isn't it?
We're going to, you can go ahead and read both of them, and then we'll talk about them together.
Okay, and item B, you will need separate votes, or you can just, okay. Item B is consider approving the Tiers Board recommendation of 3 projects.
There's an item 2 on that first one.
Authorize. I must be a short time.
There's just item.
There's just 109 years.
Obviously, I am looking forward to the next item that we're going to deal with. Item 2 is authorizing the city's application to the Texas Department of Transportation for alternative set-aside, TA set-aside funding for the non-motorized portion of the City of San Angelo Chadbourne Street Corridor Project. Rick Wise.
That, you got it.
They're going to bring you up before they even swear you in, Brenda, if I don't quit messing up.
Like you said, these are 2 items we're considering. One is the conceptual Chadbourne Street corridor funding proposal to look at this, and then the second being the authorization to apply for the Texas Department of Transportation alternative set-aside grant dollars. Recently, staff brought this idea to council, which was an opportunity that we saw to combine a number of our plans with some funding opportunities to look at the Chadbourne Street corridor and see if this is something we could do. At that time, council unanimously endorsed that proposal to move forward with trying to
come up with a plan to accomplish the Chadbourne corridor and to apply for the grant. Go to the next slide. In that, you'll notice at the time we have several plans in the city, one being our capital improvement plan, which notes a lot of our infrastructure needs and desires to improve that along with our roadways. So this project takes into account that. It also takes into account the City of San Angelo City Center Master Development Plan. That plan calls for strengthening the city center. According to the strategy, a stronger city center experience will benefit the regional profile of San Angelo and create momentum that will expand the city's overall tax base, economic profile, quality of life, and identity as a district rich with character. So we tried to merge all of those plans together, come up with something we'd bring forward. In January, the end of January, TxDOT released a call for the set-aside program grant dollars, which kind of spurred a lot of this for us to attempt to apply for those dollars. Basically, that grant provides funding for transportation projects for non-motorized users and pedestrian-type things, ADA. So while this project you're looking at today encompasses the entire street, as we're going through it, you'll see total numbers that talk about the whole cost of the project, which is all of the streets and those things, and then you'll see numbers that associate with just the grant, because not all of the project is qualifying for grant dollars. It just qualifies for the walkways and the ADA items, those kind of things. So this falls under our plan as Shane was moving forward with the street dollars for this corridor anyway. Also, I'll point out as we talk about the grant itself, it does require a match from the city. So that is a required 20% match. We have seen most communities are most successful when they provide a 25 or 30. So you'll see the proposal that we have before you today, as we get to that, will show that we've incorporated the 30% match into the project. The staff also, at the time we brought it to you last, council authorized hiring half and associates who would assist us with the planning for this project. They were already working with the engineering group on the street design, so they, because there was a short turnaround time for this grant, they agreed to assist us with the actual conceptual plans, which is what you see today. We had several public meetings, gathered input, and they have prepared some conceptual plans. They've prepared cost estimates, and they've also prepared the grant application itself. Keep in mind the plans you see today are conceptual. So if we're awarded the grant and we move forward, then the final details will be worked out. I think one of the main things you'll notice in the concepts are that there was talk about how it's designed. Are you going to have medians? Are you not going to have medians? You have turn lanes. Are you going to have landscaping? How many parking places are you going to lose? So a lot of that has been worked out. You'll see these concepts incorporate angled parking, still like we currently have. They incorporate medians in the middle, but turn lanes there at the intersections. And they really minimize the number of parking places that are lost. I think the last count I got in this corridor that we're considering for the grant, which is A and B, just A and B from Houston Hart to the river, there is a loss of about 6 spaces. So doing all that has a minimal impact on parking, as some of the other plans may have had. So we'll go on and look a little bit at the project. So these are the concepts that you've seen that we just talked about, where you can see the angled parking and the intersections. Some of the specific details in that will still be worked out. Like I said, we would have additional public meetings at that time if we're awarded the funding, and we would get those detailed plans drawn up. Can y'all forward to the next slide? The clicker's not working. So this is the full corridor stretch from Houston Hart to the river. Keep in mind our plan incorporates that half we'll work on it with. We'll do a conceptual design of this all the way from Houston Hart to Washington. Our goal is to get that full stretch done. In this particular phase, we're proposing A and B, which is from Houston Hart to the river. It does include some connection to the river that doesn't currently exist, some ADA access, and then also a couple of links on that river corridor as well, which would make that pathway more ADA accessible. These are some typical cross sections. This is a cross section of what exists today. So you see we have the sidewalks, we have angled parking, your traffic lanes, and then you have a turn lane. The proposed would be, this would be a typical cross section with the medians. You'll see still the angled parking, but you'll notice that in the traffic lane you have a shared use lane, which incorporates bikes as well as traffic, and then you have your sidewalks as well. And then the next one shows a typical intersection where you go back to having a turn lane to assist with traffic flow. Any questions on the concepts before we move on to funding options?
Council?
Not on the concept, but I will have a question.
I'll move into the funding. What we did was look at, in order to accomplish this project, it's a huge project, and we had to look at a variety of funding sources to see if we could get where we needed to go. At the end of the day, you know, the projected cost for the project is almost $20 million for this corridor. So as we looked at areas, we really had to pull everything we could together to try and accomplish. So you'll notice at the top we have streets. That was some funding where Shane had dollars allocated for this project to begin. Also, you'll notice we have an A and a B. What I tried to do for you is present a couple of options. So you can take, mix and match. These are options for you to consider of how to get to our goal with funding. You can mix and match. You can throw it all out the door and start over. That's for the council to decide as we move through that. But I wanted to give you things to look at and consider, and we can go from there. So streets, there's $2.5 million allocated that could be used for this project. That is an area that you can look at as we go along as to whether there's more flexibility within that fund to assist with this project or sort of be your fallback area.
How far would A take us? What street?
I think it goes from Houston Hart to Harris or Beauregard. It goes to Harris.
Harris?
Yes, from Houston Hart to Harris.
And B would go to the river?
Correct, from Harris. Now, the information that HAF prepared for us, the spreadsheet that you got, it breaks down the cost by block. So while this shows to Harris, you know, you could choose to go to Beauregard, and they have prepared those numbers, so you could see what those numbers are. Okay. So the other funding source, the MPO met and agreed this was a project that they could support and work that into their funding plan. So they had allocated $4 million. Now, those dollars would come over a period of time, and so as with a lot of these dollars, it would really require the city to front those dollars, and then you'll be reimbursed. So Tina can speak to that if you need to. We wanted to make sure that the city had the capacity to do that, and from what we're hearing from finance, that is very doable. The next area we looked at were the tier zones. Of course, in tiers, we have two zones. We have a north and a south. This particular project, about a block and a half of it falls in the north. The remainder of it falls in the south. What the tiers board voted on after much discussion was that they would recommend allocating 25% of their funding for the next 8 years. And so you see estimates on item A for 25% of funding from those two zones. One recommendation that was also mentioned was that because there's not as much area in the north, that the south should contribute more. And so you'll see an option B that is figured where the south actually contributes 50% of its funding that comes in instead of 25, where the north is still calculated at 25. You can adjust those. Council has the decision on how much that is and how it's divvied out. COSA DC reviewed the proposal at their meeting, and they supported the project and agreed to allocate $750,000 over the next I believe, 5 years, giving you the 3.75. River dollars, we have a few dollars remaining in the river project, and because this project would do connectivity to the river and also address a few ADA issues on that trail, thus linking that whole river trail to downtown more, we were going to utilize those dollars to leverage the grant dollars. It lets us accomplish things that we wouldn't be able to accomplish otherwise with just these river dollars by themselves. As we go through, we looked at the portion of the project that applied to sewer, stormwater, and water, and those would be expenses borne there as far as the estimates. We looked at the hotel occupancy tax. There's wayfinding within the project, and these were the dollars that were identified for wayfinding, so we felt that was an appropriate place to utilize some of our occupancy tax dollars. And then you'll see the TxDOT grant dollars. Like I said, that only applies to the portions of the project that have to do with sidewalks, ADA, those kind of things. It does not apply to the general roadway for construction. So that is the grant itself would be applied for a little bit higher amount because we have to spin off some of it to TxDOT, but this is the amount that would actually be available for construction on this project. Other grants, Sandra knows of some other opportunities we could look at for bike racks and those kind of things. Other options we discussed to get you to our goal was an assessment. Some communities do assessments like we do on roadways. So in this case, you could look at an assessment for abutting or adjoining property owners in redoing those sidewalks. Option A, you see, doesn't calculate that in at all. Option B considers it, and that is considered at a rate of if there's 6,000 feet of frontage along that roadway, then if you assessed $10 per foot for 10 years, that's what it would generate.
Is this $10 per year per foot, or is this $10 spread out and divided over 10 years?
That 600,000 is considered that there was 6,000 feet of frontage, and you would take and assess $10 per foot per year for 10 years.
So if there's 100 foot, it would be $1,000 a year 10 times. So it'd be a $10,000 assessment.
Yes. That's how that's calculated. Now, like I said, you can mix and match that. You can adjust it, whatever you choose. That's just an example for you. This kind of summarizes those options. So it shows, one, your project total as it's projected. And keep in mind, these are estimates. These are the best we could figure. As inflation goes up and down and bids come in, that can change. So this is a funding concept of how we would come up with the dollars. This is the projected cost. You see, we took the funding, the 17 and the 18, in options A and B. The other thing we factored in is that in the plan itself, there were some city inspection dollars that were calculated. That's something Russell and his group felt that they could do a lot of that in-house. So in this proposal, I put back in credit there. And then also in some of the permitting fees, those are, because they're streets, there's certain things that we wouldn't need there. So after I put those back in, you see an approximate shortfall of somewhere between 400,000 and 1.6 million. And that's sort of it in a nutshell. So we're here to answer questions.
Over to you, Charlotte.
Proposals.
Rick, this is the project that Sean brought to us a few years ago that we were wanting to apply for the grant to do Chadbourne Street and use some TIERS monies, the same funding, but we didn't receive the grant. It was turned down. My question was, do you recall why
As I
we were turned
recall,
down?
the things that were done, and I wasn't involved at that time with planning, so I'll just speak from what, and maybe others can speak more intelligently, but in general, they did receive some dollars. The dollars, though, were not enough to construct the plan as it was really sort of designed. So we ended up using those dollars to address ADA issues. So you'll notice at the time they went in and put a lot of handicap ramps, accessibility things, which was great because our downtown was very inaccessible in that regard. So while they didn't do the full project, they did enough to make us ADA compliant. This grant, as we look at it, the one thing that we are required to do is we can't decrease accessibility. They say, what you've done was good work, but anything we do forward from here has to be making it even better. So I think they did the minimal they could at the time with the dollars they had available, and that was basically to address ADA concerns and some aesthetics.
I recall the future plan is to take it all the way out to where it connects with the overpass out there at 87, is that right? To bring it all the way down, and at the time it wasn't Washington, it was at least a Concho, but the either center aisle parking or losing parking, but the beautification of it, what I'm trying to get at is the future. This is what cities are going to revitalize their downtown areas. We've been working on this for quite some time. And for our future, for San Angelo's future, for any part of I-27, it's only advantageous, but we're having a shortfall. I saw there of $1.5 million, and where would that money come from?
The options are that you can, one, look at those that we've put forward, whether you look at assessments or those kind of things. The other option is to look at, at this point, looking toward the general fund is kind of tough. That's not a real consideration. We would recommend that you look at the streets fund as your safety net in that regard. As Shane works through those projects, he'll have to prioritize, and he can speak to this as well. There's some opportunities that they feel with the equipment that y'all have recently purchased that will have some cost savings there that can also assist. But that would be the area I would recommend that you look at.
Lane?
Back to the previous slide with the TxDOT grant. My question is, what was the max that they recommended? I remember you telling me this in your office, but the 4.9.
What we did was we checked to see if there was a max. There is no max written out on the application, so we checked to see, if there was any limit on that. The issue with this particular, I guess the discussion would be, this applies to cities under 200,000 in population. So I think we have 6.6 that the state will be able to allocate for our size city. So our dollar amount is big. Do they have the capacity to fund it? Yes. I can't answer whether they will fund it in full or not.
We might not get 4.9, but.
Right. If we don't receive, then there's always the option that they'll run this program again next year. If they do, we've got our stuff prepared. We would just reassess our estimates, and we'd be ready to go again. So those are options.
One last question: the median. How's that going to affect maintenance schedules?
What we do now with downtown is technically property owners should maintain the walks in front of their businesses. What the Tiers Board has been doing recently is that as we've done the stuff, for instance, on North Chadbourn, the property owners are supposed to maintain those areas. Downtown San Angelo, Tiers had this discussion not that long ago, and talked about it. There were some areas that were damaged, light poles, those kind of things. So the Tiers actually allocated funding for the repair of those things, and then the city crews actually executed the work. So funding through them, executed with city. In addition, there was some concern about trash or weeds or those kind of things. Downtown San Angelo, in working with the Tiers Board, said, you know what, we're going to try and work with those property owners to see that that is maintained. So I assume that same sort of agreement would apply toward these areas as well as we make those improvements. But I will say that as we go into it, if the council or the Tiers Board or Downtown San Angelo sees that some of those things are not working, then we would need to revisit that to see whether or not things would need to be contracted out or what might need to happen there.
Lucy.
Okay, Rick, the first thing that I wanted to address was to make sure that as far as our schedule goes for fixing our street, the money, the $2.5 million that you're talking about will not have anything to do with us continuing our road construction, correct?
I want to speak to that, but as I understand it, that is correct.
The monies that we're showing here on this were already allocated for the Chadbourne Street improvement, so we're not changing anything from that aspect at this point. If we need to use this fund to help support, if there's any overrun of charges, or, you know, if we need that extra 1.6 or whatever it is, depending on whatever option y'all choose, we would, again, need to dip into that fund a little deeper than what was already projected for Chadbourne Street. But again, I believe with some of the new equipment, machinery that we have, that those savings will be made up fairly quickly.
Well, that's my main concern, is that we don't deviate from the plan that we have for our streets, and then you come back and go, oh, we don't have any money to finish the street up because we put it in the Chadbourne project. That's my main concern.
No, right now, these funds are, they were already budgeted for the Chadbourne Street project, so.
The other question.
Specifically for the Chadbourne Street project, the
From the-
2.5
From,
million.
yes, from the streets aspect of it, this was already funded dollars out of that bond funding.
One thing I will point out, just in that regard as well, is that as we've looked at these, we've done our estimates based on putting back concrete into the roadways instead of going back with asphalt. Our goal is to make these a long time fix, something that they're not going to have to come back and revisit in the future.
Okay, and again, tell me, as far as the Tiers North, that's only going to be a block and a half? That's going to fall into the north side?
Correct.
One more question. On that grant, the TxDOT grant, is that the one that you're talking about that the city has to put in 30%?
Correct. We're required, under the grant, we have to put in actually 20%, but we've seen that most cities get better scoring points if they put in a larger amount. So that's what we're recommending that we do.
Thank you.
Harry?
Well, this is in my district, so I can guarantee you I'd like to make sure that we move forward with it. There's some concern, I think, from using the North Tiers money, but quite honestly, if you don't dress up this area as the entrance to North Chadbourne in that particular area, then I think we're losing out. Couple of other things. This grant, if we decide we're going to go with it as it's stated, it has to be in by the 22nd of this month. So we really need to make sure that we make a decision today on where we want to go. Why don't you run the next slide back towards forward and get where we at? No, back the other direction. Yeah, right that one. We talked about, Lucy, you just asked about the street assessment. Those dollars where you're short, maybe it's the next slide actually, where we show how many dollars we're short. That's fine. The bottom line is we made a decision that we were to pick that up out of street funds, and so those funds on column B, by making the assessment at $10 per foot for 10 years, only leaves us short about $408,000. If you don't have that assessment, then you're $1.5 million, which impacts the amount of dollars that we've got in the street funds. So I like the idea that we're putting utilities underground, we're replacing water and sewer lines, that we're doing concrete so we never have to come back in and do maintenance. Never in my lifetime, probably never in my granddaughter's lifetime. The bottom line is I'd like either to do B or a combination somewhere between the two of them.
Marty?
Well, I'm certainly not very pleased about what the North is paying as far as only getting a block and a half. But sometimes you have to sacrifice a few for the good of the many. But I hope definitely if we look at it that we look at B, so that we up the south tiers to 50%, what we might want to look at is the possibility of taking the assessment and having a max, even though we'll lose a little bit of money. Some people have, as I think the mayor pointed out, some people have a fairly good strip in there. So there's, 50 foot, I don't think's a problem, but there's a couple that, one has like 250 foot, I believe, and that assessment would be large. So we may want to look at a max on the assessment, but as far as footage, but other than that, like I said, I'm not happy about what the North's putting in, but I can definitely support B.
Mayor, I'd like to clarify on the assessment that it, like all of the numbers on this option, is at this point not a done deal. To do the assessment, there's actually going to have to be a number of hearings before the new council, as well as publications. So what you're providing now, I don't want anybody to get the idea that if you're saying that it's going to be 10 foot over 10 years or $10 a foot for 10 years, that's actually what's going to happen at the time the assessment goes. That's just going to be a recommendation for funding at this point.
Well, I don't like the north tiers spending $957,000 for one block, while the south tier spends 1.1 for 10 blocks. I mean, I want this to be proportional. That's why we divided the north from the south, so that we could spend the tiers money from the north that was collected in the north, and we could spend the money that was collected in the south for the south. So I will not support this unless it's a proportional amount. And I might also add that it takes a super majority vote to take money out of either one and put it in the other, and I will not support it. You do not have a super majority vote. I want this tiers money to be used proportionally. I don't want the north paying for the south.
Just to clarify, the funding, and this was discussed as well. So just to clarify, there is staff nor the tiers board has proposed spending any money from the north in the south. The actual cost of the blocks far exceed the actual allocation of funds. You're totally correct on the percentage, but there will be no use of funds spent in the south from the north.
Well, when the motion is made, I want it made that the north will spend proportionally for their half or for their percentage of the work that is done. I also will say that I went by a business that is on 6th Street this morning. It's a business that's been there for a couple of years. Their property is 250 foot wide. That means that they're at $10 a foot, they would be assessed $2,500 a year. Times 10 is $25,000 worth of a tax that they would pay, and they are on the north side of where all of this is happening. So this one particular business is going to be charged a tremendous amount of money, and they will receive nothing because they are north of where the whole thing starts. I also noticed there's a lot of church property in there. We also have the bus depot in there. We have a lot of nonprofits in there. So you've got a lot of people here that are not paying taxes anyway, that are not going to be assessed, and you're going to add a tremendous amount of money to those properties that are being assessed. I do not like the assessment. I mean, if we can't afford to do this, then let's not do it. But I don't want to assess, I don't want to add a double tax to our businesses down there. And I will say that we're dealing with the $2 million deficit in our city income. Every one of these businesses are dealing with the deficit as well. I do not want to double tax these businesses. So I will not support an assessment, and I want the motion to be made that the north tiers, it will be proportional for what they get. That's my opinion. Anyone else?
I got to make this comment, Dwayne, and I know why we've got these two tiers groups set up so that monies are separate. But you got to remember that the North tiers group gets a heck of a lot more money than the South tiers group does because of the 29th Street Walmart. And it's always going to be that particular way where that group is always going to have more money to spend. The next item that we've got, we're only going to talk about allocating dollars to north people, to the businesses on the north side. I mean, that's the way it's always going to be. So having that opportunity to say that dollars that are in the north has to stay in the north, well, they're always going to have more money to utilize.
They are staying in the north.
And you are right, but that's the way it was set up. That's the way this entire thing was designed, is that tiers would be divided in the north and the south. And the north would use the money collected in the north for businesses in the north. And the south would use the money collected in the south for businesses in the south. And you say, well, the north has more money, so we need to go get it. Well, we've done that. The north put in something like $1.2 million several years ago for the library downtown. That's not in the north, it's in the south. We also were assessed something several years ago for another project, and the north pulled money out of the north and was used in the south. So the north has already supplemented the south, and that's when we created it, that there would take a supermajority vote to take money out of either one of these areas and use it in the other, because the money that is generated in the areas is where the money is to be spent. I will not support any money coming out of the north to be used in the southern section unless it is a proportional amount. That's the way we set it up. I mean, just because one group has more money than the other doesn't mean that you continue to go take the money from the one that has it.
I will point out, as downtown San Angelo even was looking at the figures, the south dollars, there are some projects coming online. Those aren't factored into this, so you may see some additional dollars there. How much, I don't know.
Teresa, today's A portion of this, or number one portion of this, is the funding concept.
That's correct.
And the details associated with specific approvals for specific funding amounts will have to come back. Is that correct?
That's correct. I believe some of the Costa DC funding's already been approved by that board, and the TIERS funding's already been approved by that board to a certain level. But things like the special assessments and any of the moving around of money would have to come back before the new council.
And to the extent that any concept approved deviates from, will that also have to come back to TIERS?
Yes, I mean, if we're going to deviate from this proposed funding plan, then they would have to come back and modify the funding plan, very much like we do on the auditorium as new projects pop up in that project.
And that's part of the discussion today, knowing that these are the conceptual funding plan, knowing that there is going to be some moving parts, and that council buys into that, knowing that may happen.
I agree with what the mayor has just said, that it was strongly debated, using north funds for the north, using south funds for the south, and rightfully so, because the north was putting in more funds. And there was a point in time, didn't the south borrow in concept from the north? Or funds
Well, that
for a
was what I
project?
asked for, but that's not what happened.
It didn't. It never has been paid
No,
back.
they
So
took
that's.
it.
I just wanted to bring that up. That sometimes it gets lost and skewed, but I do recall the South borrowing from the North, and was just curious if it's ever got funded back, paid back. The one problem that I have with everything is talking about concepts and perceptions out there. We have gone through a very long campaign period where people have complained and let us know streets. They want their streets fixed. And this is not just in downtown they want them fixed. They want them fixed all over town. And it concerns me that we won't educate the people well enough to where the money is actually coming from, and that $2.5 million of the street funding for that time frame was for the Chadbourne Street project, and people are going to misconstrue that we can spend $18 million fixing downtown San Angelo, Chadbourne Street, and let the rest of it go. And I don't want that to happen, because this project is vital, in my opinion, for the future of San Angelo, the growth of San Angelo. This project represents us moving forward and capturing the tourism dollars that are out there that we want to capture. And I got excited back when Sean brought it to us in the past and the entire concept. I even took a trip to my hometown, the downtown, how they have done and turned, and the beauty of it and what it's drawn. And I might add the one who did all the bronze sculpting for everything there is the one that's doing our Humano Indian. So I know what it can do, that downtown monies and the development. I know. I've seen what it can do. So I don't want to protest against the project too strong. I just want to caution that we have got to, as a city, do a better job at educating the people as to what pots monies come from to pay for certain things so that there's not any misunderstanding out there. And that's what I would caution against and promote, and I will support.
Marty?
As far as Plan A, if we were to go with Plan A, where do we think the 1.5 would come from?
I can let finance speak to options, but from what I've seen, you really have to fall back most likely upon those street dollars and look for cost savings within those areas with the equipment you've purchased, those kind of things, and challenge staff to make sure that it has a minimal or no impact on the other projects. But I think that's really your net.
Okay. So based upon that, do we need a motion for this, correct? I move that we accept the conceptual plan of B, and we omit the other funding of $600,000 or the special assessment funding of $600,000. We can let that be addressed later because it's got to come back anyway, right? If I understood Teresa right.
Correct, yes. It'll come back multiple times, actually.
In this scenario, if you remove it, which is fine, we won't bring it back unless we're instructed to bring that back as an option.
What is your motion again? Which one are you going for? The one with the assessment or the one without the assessment?
I'm going Plan B, where South Tiers.
So that'd be the 408,215?
Yes, but we take out the special assessment.
Then that means it's 1585,967.
No,
It ends up being just over $1 million.
$1,008,000.
So your motion is to not add an assessment to this project.
Correct.
Would you add that the North Tiers will pay proportionally?
No, sir.
Okay.
I can second that.
Well, you need to divide it in two motions then, because I can kill your tiers. It takes 6 votes to approve the tiers, and I'm going to vote against it.
He's not proposing, I need to clarify the motion, but Marty, you're not proposing to use any north funds in the south.
Correct.
You're just proposing that those dollars be spent on that block and a half, which means what the mayor's opposed to, that it's a higher percentage being paid in those 2 blocks.
Correct.
So the north would pay for the north and the south will pay for the south.
Yes.
Correct.
What is the percentage?
The percentage is way different. I don't have the percentage. It's going to be still, percentage-wise, the north is paying much more per block than the south is paying in theirs, because you got 1.5 blocks versus 10 blocks.
No assessment.
What he is doing is, in his proposal, is the north is contributing 25% of their income to apply toward that, and the south is contributing 50% of their income. So the south is going to contribute a higher percentage of the yearly income they draw in. That's what his motion is, as it is in B.
But you don't have a figure to tell us what north will pay for their 1.5 block and what the south will pay for theirs?
Yes, the dollar figures, I don't have percentages, but
The percentages are 15% in the north and 85% in the south.
the tiers north, what he's proposing is that under option B, that the south will be paying approximately 1.125 The north will remain at the 25%, which was 957 approximately, which is 25%, 25% and 50%.
That's your proposal.
Yes.
I won't support it. So you need to break it out and make two motions. I'll support what you're doing with removing the assessments, but I will not support you using 25% of the money. I will not support you pulling money out of the north to put in the south.
He's not doing that.
She said 15% would be used in the 1 1/2 blocks, and we are putting in 25% under this.
That's what percentage. Tina, do you want to explain that better? They're not using.
I think what Rick's trying to say is that this $957,000 that's allocated in the north tiers, the cost of the updates and the construction that they will do there far exceeds that amount. So you will not spend any of that $957,000 in the south tiers. Every bit of it is an expense that will be incurred in the north tiers.
Well, then explain to me how this is 25%, and you just said that the north portion in that 1 1/2 block would be 15%. Now, what you said? Or did I
Yes,
miss?
sir. No, you're correct. Approximately 15 and 85
And that would amount to how many dollars?
total project. But the cost of that 1 1/2 blocks in the north tiers exceeds this $957,000.
So
that they're
15%
contributing.
in the 1 1/2 block exceeds 25% in the total project.
Yes, because you're doing percentages of different things. The 25% is 25% of what the north tier's revenue is. That has nothing to do with this project. That's just what the tiers brings in. And they dedicated 1/4 of their revenue for this project.
I am very confused.
And this did come as a recommendation from the tiers board, so.
The key is that what is dedicated from Tiers North is not enough to pay for that 1 1/2 blocks. So it's all needed, plus some of the other revenue is needed to do the north piece.
So 25% is less than 15%.
No, sir.
Yes, that is true. 25% of the north tier's revenue is less
Less
than
than 15% of the project cost.
25% of the north tier's revenue is less than 15% of this project. You're taking percentages of two different pools.
So 15% of this project would be $3 million, give or take.
Mr. Mayor?
Okay.
Block and a half. Just
I
to
give up.
clarify.
I give up.
The block and a half. There's $2 figures if you look at your spreadsheet. From 6th to the railroad, you have a total in that block of the project costing $1.8 million. From the railroad to 4th is $963,000. So you can see what I'm saying. The cost of that block, just the initial block from 6th to the railroad, is $1.8 million.
And that's the figure I asked for a while ago, and you said you didn't have it.
Well, then that's my bad. I'm sorry. But that number exceeds the $957,000 is what I'm telling you. You will spend more money than that number is just in the first block.
Okay.
Take a break. A short break.
You want to finish this first? You want to break?
Teresa, do we need a supermajority to approve the concept, or just a majority?
No, we just need a majority.
Okay, thank you.
How about the supermajority to approve pulling money from one, putting in another?
Because you're not actually spending actual dollars that are created in the north, in the south. You do not need a supermajority for that either.
15% is more than 25%. I'll back Marty's proposal on that.
Thank you. You're doing a good job.
But I do not understand the math.
Stay with me. Stay with me. We'll get there.
You have made the motion that we accept this, no assessments, and use 25%, which is less than 15%.
And 50%.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Yes, sir. Second.
Do I have a second? Public comment. Council comment. Yes, ma'am.
One of the most, Brenda Gunter, one of the most important parts, I think, on this concept of this design is that we don't do what we've just done with the past streetscaping program that was approved several years ago, because we allowed the Tiers Board to pick and choose which pieces on which sidewalk got done. So net effect is we spent an awful lot of money, or some money, doing a streetscape program, which no one's happy with because it's awful. And it did more to hurt our image than it did to help our image. So my wish is that if, in fact, these dollars are changed somewhere along the way and we can't come up with the funding, that we definitely have a plan A and a plan B for design that is done from a very logical perspective, not a secondary board picking and choosing what gets done. Because what we've got now is what happened. We can't afford to do this program a third time. So we want to make sure from the very beginning that everyone has signed off on what the design looks like, what we can afford to do versus what we can't afford to do. It's got to be very clear from the very beginning. The other issue is that many people, as they have redone their buildings, have done some terrific sidewalk improvements and unique sidewalk improvements. What I don't want to do is to have a design concept that takes away the uniqueness and the dollars that some of these people have already spent on their storefront sidewalks. We've got one right now being done in front of Raw, which is a new building. It would be a disgrace to have her tear that out 2 years down the road to fit in with this streetscape program. So we've got to make sure that we really look at building by building and understand the philosophy of the design that's already there versus trying to redesign from an overall concept that this program presents. There's nothing wrong with having uniqueness per business, per building. We don't have to have one point of view from Houston Hart all the way down to the river. So I want to make sure that we look at that. I truly believe we need a plan A and a plan B. So if there are shortfall of dollars, that we take that into consideration and make sure we really like the project. Question mark, are power lines being put underground on this dollar program?
Yes.
So that's another subject that I think we need to make sure we understand. Some of these dollars are very expensive because power lines will be buried during this project, which has also been something that people have wanted to clean up that corridor. As it relates to the dollars, the dollar base that you have for the southern tier is based off of today's property value base. You will have coming on to the tax base this next year the First Financial Bank, which is a $6 million project, which will add additional dollars into the southern tiers. You also will have the Roosevelt Hotel, which will have additional dollars added to the tax base in 2018, as well as many other projects. So when you start taking a look at the dollars, there could be potential more dollars in the southern tiers than what is projected here. The other issue is I think you talked about northern and southern tiers and the southern tiers borrowing money from the north. My recollection was that there was $140,000 taken from the north to the south on that library, not $1.2 million, and that was to do the sidewalk on the western side of the library because there was a tremendous amount of problems with slope and access there. I don't believe it was ever $1.2 million. The other amounts that were taken from the north versus the south repaid, and those were for some tiers funding that the southern tiers put up in order to get the whole entire tiers program approved. Thank you.
We do have a motion that we accept the plan with, yes, ma'am.
I want to deny you the opportunity to agree with me. So my name is Elizabeth Grindstaff. I live at 1115 Live Oak Street, and I also serve on the Tiers Board. And during the discussion at that meeting, it was very important to me that we see some sort of proportionality between the north funds and the south funds for this project. I've spent many years trying to protect the north side tiers funds, having worked as a staff person here. But most importantly, I think this is a project that has the opportunity to unite San Angelo north to south. And I would hope that there are north side funds that are available to be used for that purpose to carry this project from the south side under Houston Hart and up to the north, hopefully as far as we can go, maybe even to the Coliseum. So I just ask that you factor that in your decision. Thank you.
Any other public comment?
Steve Hampton. I appreciate the opportunity. I've seen these kind of programs put into play before, where they take a traffic, a street that carries a lot of traffic, and I think Chadbourne carries the most north and south, and they put in these decorative features, and what it does, it narrows the artery where it's not able to carry the amount of traffic that it had before. And since we're trying to use this as a gateway, it doesn't seem to me like it really serves that it's well designed. Like I said before, people, when it was put in before on a Main Street project, it narrowed it, and people started complaining because it wasn't, you couldn't get anywhere, and so when they're not able to travel Chadbourne, then they're going to have to go an alternate route. So something to consider. I think the decoration is nice, and I don't want to kill the idea, but maybe it's not entirely appropriate unless we figure out another way to widen or only do partial part of it. Another thing, it seems like you've tried to leverage every, I don't see the employee retirement fund on here, but maybe you can come up with another pool of money, but and you still don't have enough. That tells me that maybe this needs to be tabled until you do, because lack of funding. And I agree with what has been said over here about maintaining our streets project and focusing there for the whole town instead of just the downtown. And I thank you for your time.
Any other further public comment on this item? Okay, let's clarify this one more time. We are going to accept it. The motion is that we accept it as it has been presented.
Plan B.
That the Plan B, that we have taken out the assessments, and that Tiers puts in 25% from north and 50% from south.
Correct.
Anybody, and you seconded that, didn't you, Harry? Any other questions from council? Last time for public comment. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, nay. Put a 6-0 on it. Charlotte needs about a 5 or a 10-minute break. While we are taking the break, Brian, will you get the order on the ballot for the runoff in District 6 so that we've got that? Let's take about 10 minutes. That ought to be long enough, shouldn't it?
I'll do it.
And council, waiting on Charlotte.
Waiting on Charlotte.
He had to one. Vicky, see how he treats me?
Let's get this meeting started again, please.
Yeah.
Okay, we need a motion now
Need
on
a
number
gavel.
2.
A2, 6A2.
All righty, if everybody's ready to go, we will 6A2, which is authorizing the city's application to Texas Department of Transportation for alternative set-aside funding, non-motorized portion of the City of San Angelo Chadbourne Street Corridor Project. I need a motion to approve.
Move to approve as presented.
I need a second. Marty? Any questions from council? I believe we beat this horse just about as far as we can beat him, but if there's any public comment, I will take it. Motion has been made that we accept this as presented. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, nay. Put a 6-0 on it, Brian. Item number B is consider approving the Tiers Board recommendation of the 3 projects totaling $152,413.32 for incentives under the North Tiers Incentive Program. John?
Thank you. John James, Director of Planning and Development Services. We had a cycle of incentive grant requests through both the North and South tiers. However, the Tiers Board wanted to, or they sent some of those back, asked the applicants for more information. The South projects, we received about $380,000 of requests for only about $180,000 of eligible funding. And so given that they're going to have to pick and choose projects and can't fund them all, they did not make a recommendation on the south. So what comes before you today are the three projects highlighted in bold. Those are the three projects that the Tiers Board did go ahead and recommend funding. As I mentioned, that doesn't necessarily mean that these others, they did not recommend not funding. They just wanted more information and wanted to be able to discuss them more. So I'm going to briefly describe each of these projects. One is La Carbonera at 1313 North Bryant. They requested almost $10,000 in funding to enclose a garden area and do some other exterior improvements to that business. This is the location or a representation of what their improvements would look like. If you're familiar with this site, it was the TJ's Frozen Yogurt for a little while. This would be a restaurant that has actually already opened, but they would be creating an outdoor seating area there in the front. The second project is the Western Sky Steakhouse. They requested about $69,000 in funding for a total project cost of $92,000. Any of these projects that are over $10,000 do require a match from the owner. The smaller projects like the one we just looked at, if it's under $10,000, it does not require a match. This would include mostly exterior remodeling to the business. They've recently remodeled the interior, but this would be for some facade and parking lot improvements. It's kind of hard to tell here, but they'll be using some rock or brick and stucco on the exterior of the building to make it look nicer, replacing the roofing as well, and installing some safety lighting, etc. And then finally, Windland Manufacturing, they are requesting $75,000 of a total $105,000 project cost. They would be removing the metal on the metal buildings on their site and replacing it with a more attractive tan color. We've got a couple pictures. This is what it looks like now. You can see one building over here that has already been upgraded. They would intend to do that to the other buildings on the site, and there is a representation of what that will look like. If you recall, this can be seen from the Houston Heart. As you're driving, you're kind of elevated there, and you're looking down onto this property, and so the Tiers Board took that into account in terms of recommending funding for this one. So those are the three projects recommended for funding that come before you from the Tiers Board. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
This is in your district, Harry? Or is this in yours, Lucy?
It's Lucy's.
Lucy? Well, you take the lead on this, please, ma'am.
Yeah, I move to approve.
Second.
Do we have a second from Harry? And this is what the Tiers, this is why we collect money in the North Tiers, is so we can spend money in the North Tiers. This is the way it's supposed to work. Public comment on this item. Any other questions?
Before you go to that, let me remind one thing I forgot to mention is the Tiers Board did recommend funding the Western Sky, but not including the signage. So that's about, I think, $1,500 less than they requested. The Tiers Board has a pretty consistent policy of not funding signage that, if the business changes, then they have to replace the signage. So they've consistently not been funding that recently.
Very well. Public comment. No public comment. I will call for the vote. The vote is to fund this as has been recommended. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, nay. Put a 6-0 on that one. Item C is a second reading and consider adopting an ordinance amending Chapter 10 Traffic Controls, Article 1003, Operation of Motor Vehicles, Section 1003-091, one-way streets and alleys of the Code of Ordinances, adding the alley east of Bonham Elementary School and west of Southern Oak Lane, from Southland Boulevard to Laurel Oak Drive, south to north, between the hours of 7 o'clock a.m. until 4 o'clock p.m. on school days. Ryan?
Yes, sir. Good morning, Council. This is something that we did discuss. This is the second reading. We did discuss it last council. I know Ms. Farmer had some concerns on the one-way alley being tied to the school days and the actual time of 7 to 4. But I think everybody, when we kind of discussed it, understood. I'll revisit it just a little bit to kind of bring everybody back to speed that may have missed it. This is an alley east of Bonham Elementary from Southland Boulevard to Laurel Oak, and currently it's posted one way, and that would be going northbound. And so what we sat down with SAISD and some of the administration, the principal, they still feel like this is a consistent traffic movement that they see, day in, day out, people dropping their kids off, and it's the safe movement for vehicles. What we were wanting to do is amend the ordinance to allow this movement to be from 7 to 4, only on school days instead of now as it's posted where it's, all the time. And this actually is a less restrictive, for neighborhood residents because, on the weekends or after those hours, they're welcome to use their alley to go the other way if, you're getting on Southland to go to Walmart or Sam's or any of those businesses instead of making a, one way around the block there. So I don't know if there's any questions or more.
Move to approve.
Second.
You have a motion to approve as presented. I do have a second. Any council questions? Public comment on this item? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, nay.
Thank you.
One more 6-0, Brian. Item D. This is the last one, council. Consider the following items related to the Ports to Plain Advisory Board Number 1, appointment of a council member to represent the city of San Angelo on the Ports to Plains Board. Do I have a nomination?
I move we appoint Harry.
I'm going to move that we table this until after the July 8th election because we have an active sitting member that is still part as an elected board committee member.
Do I have a second, Marty, from your motion to elect Harry? Still waiting on a second. I have no second. Your motion dies. Do you have a second on yours, Lane? We do have a motion that we table this until the council's 6th seat has been set and then revisit it. Any council comment on this?
Just a real quick question. Was your motion to push this till after the July election or later in after these people are seated?
July election.
Okay.
Okay.
We still have, I want them to have a voice, whoever's
As
in
long
that
as
seat.
Charlotte is on the board, she will remain the Ports to Plain. That is your motion.
Yes.
And that is your second.
Yes, sir.
Public comment. Then I will call for the vote. Charlotte will remain until I believe it's the 18th of July, I think is when that meeting is scheduled. And then we will put it back on the agenda to appoint a Ports to Plains Board. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, nay. Item number 2 is ratification of travel reimbursement. What is this? Boss?
We had an item, Mayor, back in November, a discussion was had about appointing an individual to the Ports of Plains as far as a membership. City Council did decide to leave Charlotte, Ms. Farmer, as the representative. During that meeting, a motion was made by Marty to have a backup. We've never had a backup before, but the motion was made to make Harry the backup for the Ports of Plains member. The vote was taken at the time, and he was made the backup for Charlotte. We had a trip just recently where Lane actually did represent the city. Ms. Farmer's request, he went to the trip in D.C., and since the city council had named a backup, we wanted to make sure, and I met with Teresa, we wanted to make sure we're handling this properly as far as reimbursement for that trip. So this is why we had to come back and get this ratified, since the city council had officially, at the November meeting, made Harry the backup. And I'll sit here and I'll tell you quite frankly, I did not remember that. I talked with Brian. We had to go back and look at the video just to confirm what was there anyway. But regardless, we did have a representative from the city that did go and met with the Ports of Plains, the elected officials up in Washington, D.C. And at this point, this is for discussion and also for a decision by the city council to ratify that expenditure.
Move to approve for reimbursement for representation.
You move to approve the ratification to go ahead and pay Lane for going.
Yes.
Now, Harry didn't go.
No, Harry.
So
I
just
wasn't
one,
asked.
just one went, though.
Just
So we're
one.
only paying for one ticket. Okay. Okay.
Just before we move on that second, let me ask comment from Teresa to make sure that I understand this. When this body makes a decision, an action item, it's legal and binding, is that correct?
That's correct.
So the decision that was made in November to leave Charlotte on the Ports to Plains and have a backup individual, that decision then should have been followed when it came time to make this trip to DC.
It should have, yes.
Okay. I just want to make sure, because I wasn't asked, and I want to make sure that we're doing what we need to be doing.
Ever had a backup, and I didn't recall.
It's in the minutes.
Well, that's been a year ago. I just simply didn't recall.
It was November, so it was
I
less than
went
6
through
months
the
ago.
city manager on it, so.
So, I guess, I certainly don't have a problem with paying Lane. I think we ought to probably, based on the last motion, wait and let the future council do it. But if the appointed person can't do it, standard operating procedure in the past has just been ask somebody to go do it.
That's my understanding of what's happened in the past, yes.
I think that's why we had a backup this time.
I agree.
And I think whatever council makes a future decision.
Do we have backups on all of our board positions?
Whatever council makes a future decision on who should be the representative for Ports to Plains, we also, because it's an important position, you ought to have a backup for that. That's why we made that decision in November.
Well, to be quite honest with you, there is no provision on the Ports to Plains boards for backup.
No.
They do not allow for a.
They allow anyone to
What's
attend.
my word I'm looking for?
but not to vote.
They do not allow for a proxy. If the board member's not there, then nothing happens. So
Then
there
why
is
did-
no.
why did we send
Let me ask
somebody
this
then?
question. If that's the case, why did we send somebody to DC?
I mean, to me, that even clouds the situation more.
Well, I'm pretty good at muddling things up today.
I mean, if we don't need a backup, then why did we send anybody? Why did we use taxpayers' money to go ahead and do this? I mean, I think that's a question that needs to be answered.
I believe in hindsight, when we start taking a look at that, and I'm sitting here, and I'll be the first one to egg on my face because I did not recall. I mean, that's back in November. In the past, we have sent somebody if the representative couldn't make it, at the very least to attend the meeting itself. But I had to go back and take a look at that because we haven't had a backup, and that's when we realized that, yes, there was a backup, and we needed to handle this the right way. Harry, I think you're absolutely right. If city council makes a decision and they name a backup, that's who the backup should be. We should always go by what the city council's decision is. But I am telling you right now that I didn't have recollection of that. All I had knew that Charlotte was the member that was voted for.
I certainly don't have a problem reimbursing the individual that made this trip, because this individual took it very wholeheartedly and spent a lot of time doing what was necessary representing this particular city. And my understanding is he did a very, very good job. But
Well, then I will second the motion to pay the man then.
Thank you.
Any other council comment? Public comment on this item? Then the vote is to pay Lane for going to Washington, D.C. with Ports to Plains. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Put a 6-0 on that one, Mr. Bryan. Now it is time for the special agenda. This is consider adopting a resolution canvassing returns and declaring the results of the general and special elections held on the 6th day of May 2017, providing a severability clause and providing for an effective date. The lawyers have handed me about 6 pages here that they want me to read with a lot of whereases and therefores and whereases. And I got to read every bit of this, don't I?
You do? Yes, sir.
Please bear with me. Lean back, grab a cup of coffee, because we're going to be reading for a while. The resolution of the City of San Angelo, Texas, canvassing returns of the general election and the special election held in said city on the 6th day of May 2017 for the purpose of electing municipal officers, declaring results of the general election, providing a severability clause, and providing for an effective date, whereas pursuant to resolution number 201701001 of the City of San Angelo, Texas, adopted on the 17th day of January 2017, a general election was duly held on the 6th day of May 2017 for the purpose of electing municipal officers to the following positions: mayor and city council members, single member 2, 4, 6. 4-year terms, and whereas pursuant to Resolution Number 201703-0032 of the City of San Angelo, Texas, adopted on the 2nd day of March 2017, a special election was duly held on the 6th day of May 2017 for the purpose of electing a municipal officer to fill a vacancy for the following position: City Council Member for Single Member District Number 1 to the remainder of an unexpired 3-year term ending in May 2019, and whereas both the said general election and the special elections were held with the solemnities and formalities necessary to make a valid election, all notices having been posted in the manner and for the length of time required by law, and whereas only duly qualified resident voters of the City of San Angelo, Texas, voted at the general and special elections called and held on the May 6, 2017, and whereas Section 67003 of the Texas Election Code as amended generally provides that each local canvassing authority shall not convene for the purpose of canvassing the election results earlier than the later of the 3rd day after the uniform election day in May, or the date on which the early voting ballot board has verified and counted all provisional ballots, if any, or the date on which all timely received ballots cast from the addresses outside the United States are counted, if any, and not later than the 11th day after the election day, and whereas Section 67004A of the Texas Election Code is amended establishes the quorum level required to canvass election results to be 2 members of the canvassing authority, and whereas a quorum of the City Council met on Tuesday, May 16, 2017, and duly canvassed the election returns of the above described general election and special election attached hereto as Exhibit A. Now therefore be it ordained by the City Council of the City of San Angelo, Texas, Section 1. The findings set forth above are incorporated into the body of this resolution for the purposes as it fully set forth herein. Section 2. The City Council officially finds and determines that the said elections were duly ordered to be held in the City of San Angelo, Texas on the 6th day of May 2017 for the purpose of electing municipal officers to the following positions: Mayor, City Council members for single member districts 2, 4, and 6 to 4-year terms, and City Council member for single member District 1 to the remainder of an unexpired 3-year term ending in May 2019 respectively, and that proper notices of said election were duly given, that proper election of officers were duly appointed prior to said elections, that said elections have been duly made and election returns delivered, and the City Council has duly canvassed said returns, all in accordance with law. Section 3, the City Council officially finds and determines that only qualified resident voters of the City of San Angelo were allowed to vote at said elections, and the following votes were cast at said election, that the canvass of the votes cast in said elections and returns thereof, which is attached hereto as Exhibit A, were made in accordance with the law. Brenda Gunner received 4,595 votes for 65.22%. Charlotte Farmer received 802 votes for a total of 11.38%. Zach Taylor received 332 votes for a percentage of 4.71%. Tony Villarreal received 1,316 votes for a total of 18.68%. Bill Richardson, Single Member District 1, received 74 votes for a 3.94% of the total. Darren Fentress received 96 votes, or 5.12% of the total. Tommy Hebert received 1,179 votes, 62.85% of the total. Anna Bartosh, 527 votes, or 28.09% of the total. Single council member, single member District 2, Mr. Tommy Thompson received 578 votes, which amounted to 100% of the votes taken. City Council member SMD 3, Chris Garreau, received 220 votes, or 37.93%. Lucy Gonzalez received 360 votes for a total of 62.07%. City Council member SMD 6, Rebecca Kaufman, received 388 votes for a total of 23.59% of the totals cast. Billy F. DeWitt received 611 votes, or a total of 37.14%. And Steve Hampton received 646 votes, or a total of 39.27% of the vote. Section 4, pursuant to the applicable provisions of the Texas Local Government Code, Texas Election Code, and the City of San Angelo, Texas Home Rule Charter, the City Council officially finds, determines, and declares the results of said election to be that, number 1, Brenda Gunner is elected mayor to a 4-year term of office by majority vote of the votes cast for mayor. Number 2, Tom Thompson is elected City Council member for Single Member District 2 to a 4-year term of office by majority vote of the votes cast for City Member Single Member District 2. And number 3, Lucy Gonzalez is elected City Council member for single-member District 4 to a 4-year term of office by majority vote of the votes cast for the city council member, single-member District 4, and number 4, no candidate for the position of city council member for single-member District 6 received a majority of votes cast, and a runoff election is called for July the 8th of 2017 between Steve Hampton and Billy F. DeWitt. The two candidates having received the highest and the second highest number of votes cast for the position of city council member for single-member District 6. Section 5. Pursuant to the applicable provisions of the Texas Local Government Code, Texas Election Code, and the City of San Angelo, Texas, Home Rule Charter of the City Council officially finds, determines, and declares that the results of that special election to be that number 1, Tommy Hebert is elected City Council member for single-member District 1 to the remainder of an unexpired 3-year term, expiring May of 2019 by majority vote of the votes cast for City Council member, single-member District 1, Section 6. It is hereby declared to be the intention of the City Council that the phrases, clauses, sentences, paragraphs, and sections of this resolution are severable, and if any phrase, clause, sentence, paragraph, or section of this resolution shall be declared unconstitutional by the valid judgment or decree of any court or competent jurisdiction, such unconstitutionality shall not affect any of the remaining phases, clauses, sentences, paragraphs, or sections of this resolution, since the same would have been enacted by the City Council without the incorporation of this resolution of any such unconstitutional phrase, clause, sentence, paragraph, or section. Section number 7. This resolution shall be effective immediately upon its adoption. Now I need to read this in Spanish. No?
Okay.
That will suffice. We need to make some oath of office. Is this next?
We need a motion to pass that resolution.
Somebody make a
Move to
motion.
approve
Do not
as
ask me to
read.
reread that.
Move to approve as read.
Second.
And Lane seconds it. Any other further comment from the council? Public comment on this item. Anybody wants to comment gets to read this again. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, nay. Now we have presentations. Presented to Marty Sells, City Council member, single-member District 2 from May 13 to May 2017 in grateful recognition of dedicated service to the City of San Angelo. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
You betcha. Let's get a picture. You got it? You got it? One more. Uno más. Uno más. Uno más.
As Mayor Pro Tem, I have to explain to him, this is my job. I didn't get very many jobs because of this man, because he was always here. And I can honestly say, for my part, the last 12 years with working with you, Dwayne, has been an experience. It has been an education, and it truly has been a pleasure. I can honestly say that there are very few individuals who care for this city with the passion and the honesty that this man has for his city. His city. We will always go down and be remembered for his his hat rack up there. I don't think the bronze was meant to be a hat rack. But any and everything that Dwayne does, he puts 100% of Dwayne into it. Listens to his people, listens to staff, tells staff, and tells the rest of us sometimes how to count the cabbage. Those are my words. Now I'd like to read to you, presented to Dwayne Morrison, Mayor, City Council Member for Single Member District 2, May 2003 to May 2017, in grateful recognition of dedicated service to the city of San Angelo. Dwayne, you won't be forgotten, and you will be missed. Congratulations, Dwayne.
Thank you so much.
Bobby gets his speech, and then I've got about 15 to 20 minutes.
I just have a couple of things I'd like to say. First, I'd like to thank my wife. She's here. She's always been very supportive and been there to support me, to help me, to kind of keep my head when I thought things might be going the wrong direction. But it's been a heck of a ride. I enjoyed it. I had fun. This is my second time on the council. It's truly been a blast doing it. One of the main reasons I ran was for street improvement, and we've got that in place, so it's time for someone else to pick up the ball. But I guess my last comment would be, when I was on the council and got elected in '89, Stephen Brown, who's in the audience today, took me around and showed me staff, and we had just a great staff then. And when I got on the council this time, they took me around and showed me staff. And guys, we've got some of the best staff in the world. I'd put our staff up against anybody. And, you know, they kind of got bashed during the election this year, and that's truly unfounded. And our staff is great. And for the new council coming on, they need to let them take them around and show them. And you know, you don't always agree with them, but they know what's going on, and you need to heed them. So thanks for the ride, and thanks for the support.
In 2013, when I first took office, took the oath of being mayor, our city council and our administration got together and we asked, what can we do? What priorities can we establish that we can accomplish as a city council, as an administration? And we came up with 5 of them. And I'm going to tell you, since 2013, we have readopted each and every one of these priorities each and every year. And we have accomplished great amounts of progress on these. Our roads have been neglected since the late 80s. We now have a plan in place that has been financed, and we are rebuilding your roads. And we are borrowing money, we are paying it back, and we are not charging you a road tax. We said that we would improve the permit and the process of the permit and the planning department. We were looking at anywhere from 1 to 2 months for a residential permit. We were looking from 2 to 4 months for a commercial. We got together with the builders and the realtors and the developers in this city, and we sat down and talked about what we could do to make this better. We are now down to 1 to 5 days for a residential permit on an average. We are sitting between 2 and 4 weeks on a commercial permit. We have put $500,000 worth of software in this department. We have added to their salary. We have added to their training, and we have done many things. And I'm here to tell you what, our permit and our planning department is on the right track. And I am extremely proud of what John James and his department has done. You've made some wonderful progress in the last year, in the last 2 years. We said we would get a water supply, and we have confirmed the water on their Ford Ranch. It now belongs to the citizens. It belongs to us. And we don't have to worry with anybody taking away from us. We have built a first-class treatment center out here to go through and to make this water so that it is so perfectly pure that it has to be added before you can even drink it. We have taken care of water supplies in San Angelo, and we continue to look for other water supplies. We said that we were going to increase the salaries of our employees so that these other cities would stop taking them, and we have. We have increased all of the salaries. What's the other one? Police station. We were told by the citizens we wanted a police station. We bought a building for a police station, and we bought it right. We bought it far under the appraised value. Now, it's up to the citizens now, if you want to tax yourself to put this building online, that is coming to you. It will be a ballot initiative. We're not going to make that decision. We have done everything that we said we would do 4 years ago, and we've been very successful. It's not me. I have been blessed with some of the best city council members in my 4 years, and they have changed every year. You got some of the finest, most dedicated people that have ever served right behind me right now. These are the people that happened because they were willing to make these tough decisions and to make these road decisions and these water decisions so that we could move forward as a city. I have been blessed with a wonderful city council. I love every one of them. You cannot find a better group than I have had with me. I've got 900 city employees. And I'm talking from the top floor of administration down to those boys that are in wastewater or water up to their knees, keeping your water lines running and your toilets flushing, mowing your parks and your right-of-ways. You've got the finest employees in the world right here in San Angelo, Texas. And you need to appreciate them because they are dedicated and they work hard every day for this city. What an honor. A poor little white boy from the wrong side of the tracks is able to grow up and be elected twice to be your mayor. It is the greatest honor. Oh, I thank you. It's been a wonderful ride. Thank you. Don't do that to an old man. Thank you. Judge Gilbert, where you are. Administration of oaths of office and the presentations of certificates of election. That says I'm supposed to help do this too. Am I already through with that? Introduction of special guest. Y'all can take care of that after you're seated. Consider appointment of Mayor Pro Tem. Later.
Go ahead and begin. Mr. Hubert, Tommy Hubert.
Tommy, if you'll raise your right hand, please, and repeat after me. I, Tommy Hubert.
I, Tommy Hebert.
Do solemnly swear or affirm.
Do solemnly swear or affirm.
That I will faithfully execute the duties.
That I will faithfully execute the duties.
Of the office of.
Of the office of.
San Angelo City Council.
San Angelo City Council.
Single Member District 1.
Single Member District 1.
Of the State of Texas.
Of the State of Texas.
And will to the best of my ability.
And will to the best of my ability.
Preserve, protect, and defend.
Preserve, protect, and defend.
The Constitution and the laws of the United States.
The Constitution and laws of the United States.
And of this state.
And of this state.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Tom Thompson, if you'll raise your right hand, please, and repeat after me. I, Tom Thompson.
I, Tom Thompson.
Do solemnly swear or affirm.
Do solemnly swear or affirm.
That I will faithfully execute the duties.
That I will faithfully execute the duties.
Of the office of.
Of the office of.
San Angelo City Council.
San Angelo City Council.
Single Member District 2.
Single Member District 2.
Of the State of Texas.
Of the State of Texas.
And will to the best of my ability.
And will to the best of my ability.
preserve, protect, and defend
preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution and the laws of the United States
the Constitution and the laws of the United States
and of this state,
and of this state.
so help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
I'm so sorry. I see how excited I am.
That's
I'm
right.
ready to go.
Gonzalez, if you'll raise your right hand, please, and repeat after me. I, Lucy Gonzalez,
I, Lucy Gonzalez,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will faithfully execute the duties
that I will faithfully execute the duties
of the office of
San
Angelo City Council,
San Angelo City Council,
Single-Member District 4
Single-Member District 4
of the state of Texas,
of the state of Texas,
and will to the best of my ability
and will the best of my ability
preserve, protect, and defend
preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution and the laws of the United States
the Constitution and the laws of the United States
and of this state,
and of this state.
so help me God.
So help me God.
Ms. Gunter, if you will raise your right hand and repeat after me, please. I, Brenda Gunter,
I, Brenda Gunter,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will faithfully execute the duties
that I will faithfully execute the duties
of the office of
San
Angelo City Council Mayor
San Angelo City Council Mayor
of the state of
of the
Texas,
state of Texas,
and will to the best of my ability
and will to the best of my ability
preserve, protect, and defend
preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution and the laws of the United States
the Constitution and the laws of the United States
and of this state,
and of this state,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations.
Well, I must say I'm a little bit nervous about this first day at the podium, and I'm thankful for Dwayne Morrison's having a few issues with how to conduct the meeting, so it makes me feel a little less nervous knowing if I screw up, it's okay. So thank you, and be patient with me on this deal. Right now, we're going to let each person introduce some special guests, and I'm going to start with Tommy Hebert.
Thank you, Brenda. First and foremost, my wife, Carol, is here with me. Carol, thank you for supporting me in this rerun at this. Other friends in the audience, I had several that had to leave. I see some friends from church, no doubt. Jan and Jim Cummings, thank y'all for being here. Ellen Brown here. Stephen was here, but he left. I hope I am not missing anyone else. The others had to leave for other reasons, but I'm looking forward to the opportunity, and whatever challenges we may face, we'll do my best to serve not only the constituents in Single Member District 1, but the entire city. So I'm looking forward to this. Thanks.
Bear with me. Harry's coaching me on the mic here, so I hope we're doing good. First and foremost, I want to thank a lot of people. I could not go down that list and name them all specifically, but I will name a few that I think deserve it more than I could ever say thanks to, and that would be my wife, Carla. She works for San Angelo ISD, and she was unable to make it this morning scheduling, but I do have my mother-in-law and father-in-law, Marvin and Doris Windland, good constituents of SMD2, and I'm so glad they're here. I've got a rodeo board of director here. I've got several friends that I work with. I've got people that ran for this council that didn't make it. I've got the friends up here that also made it. I was just saying I've never worked with such a crew that has such a strong heart to serve this city the way I've heard them talk about it the past 4 or 5 months. I want to thank everybody that supported me and helped me. There were decisions that I've had to make along the lines, and I say I want to come up here and make strong, wise decisions. I think we've got one of the best sets of boards that we've ever seen. I want to thank everyone for that, and I'll say with that in mind, everyone, let's go forward. Thank you very much.
Lucy?
I'm going to try not to jump the gun and wait and make sure everybody's done. First of all, I'd like to thank God for allowing me to be here today. I am so honored and humbled to have a second term. I'd like to thank my mom for coming today, and my niece, Amy, and my brother-in-law, Bob Rice, and my sister, Linda Rice, who also was my campaign treasurer. She did a great job, and I thank you so much. And a friend of ours, Victoria. I also want to say thank you to my husband. He had to leave, and it was really hard for him to decide whether to stay or go back to work. I said, you can go back to work. I'll be okay. And my daughter, she is the joy of my life, and she was unable to be here because, of course, she decides to live in California, but she would call me, and she would uplift me and tell me that I could go on, and she gave me the best support ever. So I'd like to thank you for that, family. I also want to thank the constituents of District 4. Thank you so much for giving me another term. I will do my best to listen to you, to do what I'm supposed to do, to represent you, and I feel that together, working together, we will make our district, improve our district, do better, and San Angelo as a whole. I'd like to also thank the girls that did some block walking for me during the campaign. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Charlotte, would you?
Yes, I would. I would like to thank you and Tony Villanarreal for a good, clean run race, and I appreciate that. I appreciate the opportunity to work a couple of months with you. I truly do. I think we're going to have a great, great council as we've had in the past. I want to encourage everyone, if you don't understand how important your voice is, but you have to go and vote. Please do that. And I thank God for the opportunities that I have had the last 12 years and look forward to the next 2 months until the runoff race is completed. Thank you.
I have a lot of people in the audience today that I'd like to thank, and I'm going to kind of start from the back row. If I miss somebody, it's because I can't see your face right now, so my apologies for that. But the first person I'd like to thank is Stephen McLaughlin, who helped me run a campaign that I was proud of. And through his instruction and guidance, we came out with a terrific victory. So thank you, Stephen, for being my backbone and giving me the courage to continue. I also want to start by thanking Charlotte Farmer, Tony Villarreal, Zach Taylor, for the professionalism that they showed throughout the campaign. And we all ran a clean campaign, and it didn't get down and dirty, and I thank everyone for that. Most importantly, I want to thank the citizens for their strong support and for allowing me to be their voice and giving me the opportunity to represent them. Our entire campaign was built off of listening to the citizens and representing what the citizens said to me in terms of what they thought, they wanted, they needed. And our campaign was based off of that. So thank you for all of the citizens who are not here today. The citizens that are here that were so terrific in helping me along the way, one is Sonny Clear, Stephen and Ellen Brown, Susan Mertz, Peyton, who's just a recent graduate from ASU, thank you for that, Tony Hunter, Phyllis Cox, Jan and Jim Cummings, Major and Lucy, Hall Fines, Charlie Ducote, I see back there, Mike Biggerstaff, I see back there, Mr. Bonds, you're back there. Thank you all, Dale Velasquez, for working extra hard while I was not available all of the time. I appreciate that very much. Most importantly, I want to say thank you to the citizens once again, because you have empowered me with your trust, your vision, your issues, your needs, and I promise that I will work as hard at this job as I have at everything I've ever taken on in my life. I promise you common sense, I promise you fiscal responsibility, and I promise you an ear. I have a great ear for listening, and that is my greatest commitment to all of you out there today as we go forward and start a new city council, new mayor, a new life here at San Angelo. And the great thing I heard so often from people as I campaigned was, you know, I can't vote for you, but I like what I've seen you've done in San Angelo, and whatever happens in San Angelo, it has impact to all the rest of us out there. So it wasn't just the citizens of San Angelo watching this race, it was all of the surrounding communities who also wanted to look at us and see what we were talking about and what we felt and what was our vision and how it would impact them. So this wasn't just about the city, but it was about the region. And that to me speaks a lot about how important San Angelo is to this entire community and the surrounding communities. So thank you, everybody, for that. All right, so the next item on the agenda is consider appointment of a mayor pro tem.
I'd like to move this to July so that single-member District 6 has a new representative to do this.
Well, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any comment? Motion passes. We now have a reception, and I know we're all have been patiently awaiting for the cake, the break, the water, the tea, the refreshments, so let's all go have a party.
Sounds good.
Meeting, if you will, back to order or back in our seats, whichever way you want to call it, and continue on with the agenda and see if we can't get you out of here for lunch. Item A, consider a resolution ordering that a runoff election be held on July 8th, 2007 for the purpose of electing a council member for single-member District 6. Brian, do you have any comment on that?
Said it's a routine action because nobody received the majority of votes in 6, so it's something we have to do.
All right.
City charter.
So do we need to take a motion on that? Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
So move.
Second?
I'll second.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. B, consider award of bid items related to fuel system renovations. 1 FS-09-17 Fuel Management System to Asset Works Incorporated utilizing GSA contract number GS RF317GA in an amount of $129,816.46 budgeted in fiscal year 17 and authorizing city manager or designee to execute any related documents.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any comment? Presentation?
Yes, ma'am. If you'd like any information from me, I'd be happy to provide anything you wish. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, you just read the first item.
Yes, sir.
They are, in a sense, a joint effort to renovate some of our fuel system at our fleet services facility, including our airport fueling location. And these items are in a state where we desperately need to address them, and that's the management system is the item you just voted on. It helps monitor our consumption, our usage, where the fuel's going, what it's doing, and is again needed to get us up to date. Our current system's pretty old, and so that was that item. Yes, ma'am.
Do we need to take a motion on the second one?
Do we need to read the caption on the second one and
Okay.
then ask for any public comment on that item? And then a motion.
RFB FS-08-17 fuel dispensers to Bowler Equipment Services Incorporated in an amount of $61,291.14 budgeted in fiscal year 17 and authorizing city manager or designee to execute any related documents. Presentation by Fleet Services Superintendent Ryan Kramer.
Thank you. Ryan Kramer, Superintendent of Fleet Services. Again, this entire item, both parts, is related to our fuel system renovations. And I have just a few quick slides to get a little information to you, and then if there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer. But this is at our joint facility started by the school and the city back in, I believe, 1973. It's quite a unique operation over there. But we are addressing both the airport and the fleet services fuel sites. That's over on St. Anne Street. We have a total of 11 fuel dispensers or pumps, 2 fuel management systems, again, the 2 separate sites. And we are currently reformatting the data in those systems to pull it into our fleet management software that we already have in place, which is an AssetWorks product. The renovations that are needed, again, we manage approximately 1,500 equipment units and 1,500 personnel files in our fuel management system, and that is our records for who can and who cannot access fuel. And that's across both the city, the school district, and transit, and a few others. Fuel consumption is monitored, again, for various reasons, including financial auditing purposes, inventory tracking, as well as environmental compliance with the state. This item has been related to a CIP that has been submitted for a few years. Currently, our issues are these. In a nutshell, we are experiencing multiple issues that put us out of service, and our fuel system is the sole fuel provider for both the city and the school. We really don't have an appropriate alternative, and so as long as we need fuel, we need the ability to fuel vehicles, and currently our system does that. We again are experiencing more failures, more frequent failures. In comparison, the last fiscal year 16, we had approximately 1 failure a month, 13 instances of an issue. This year so far, we're trending that same pace, about 1 failure a month. Some of the failures deal with a singular dispenser, which does not put us out of service, but inconveniences depending on the product being dispensed. The major concerns are in the fuel system, where it puts us completely out of service, where we have no option than to manually fuel vehicles, which is a huge task. And again, we do fuel the critical operations such as fire, police, the school district, school buses, things like that. The products that you're considering, again, the fuel management system that was just voted on is an AssetWorks product, which integrates directly into our current fleet management software. It's a quality product. As a matter of fact, the entire state TxDOT uses this product and is working very well for them. We are replacing the 3 terminals that our users access, so there's some hardware in it. And we are integrating the complete system into our current fleet management software, which eliminates a lot of repetitive entry of these items, both equipment and personnel. This system that we are proposing that you just voted on is very flexible and allows for us to move forward in the future as technology changes as well. Our fuel dispensers, which is item 2 in this discussion, is replacement of the 2 pumps at the airport. There are 2 dispensing pumps at the airport and 9 dispensers at the Fleet Services site on St. Anne Street just near us here. We specified a mechanical pump because of the reduced possible electronic failures that especially we're experiencing now. Funding in fiscal year 17, we are an internal service fund. We'll be funding those dispensers from a general capital projects fund and the management system from the funds listed there, solid waste, stormwater, water, and wastewater. So again, our recommendation as staff is to both proceed with the management system as well as the dispensers. This should keep us in a more of an uptime status for our fueling, keeps our work crews, our critical responders on the road without issue.
Move to approve as presented.
Second.
A motion by Charlotte to approve as read, seconded by Lane. Any discussion? Comments, questions?
One question, Ryan. You mentioned being in the CIP. Is this? Do you have more that is coming that you either need or that is already on the bring it forward basis?
Yes, sir. The CIP that we've submitted is a complete revamp of the entire system at both sites. And we know that financially those things aren't always doable for us. And so we're at the point now where we critically need to address the issues that are before you. And so we can postpone the others at a later date that's more responsible for us to do.
Are we affecting public safety at some point by not being able to have what we need with some of these things?
Sure, absolutely. Specifically, the items, again, that are before you are the ones that are going to keep us out of that fuel system. But let's say over a weekend my fuel system fails. We may get calls to come back up there, but if we don't hear anything or it's a recurring issue, then we may be out a whole weekend without fuel, which really taxes obviously all of our operators that are trying to fix water leaks or sewer repairs as well as public safety.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks.
Yes, sir.
Ryan, real quick question. As someone that dealt with fuel systems when I worked at Goodyear, when you talk about the system being out and you mechanically pump the fuel, that means you've got to capture that information on that specific unit and the number of gallons, and then somebody has got to input that into the system for the tracking for TCEQ and all the rest. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct. Yes, sir.
Any other questions or comments? We'll take a vote. All in. Oh, sorry. Public comment. Any public comment? Please come forward.
I'm Chris Giroux. I am not speaking for SAISD, but I am an employee of SAISD that fills up out there. When the pumps go down, it's a nightmare to try and fill up 100 buses every day, and they do fill up every single day. I drive a pickup. I have to fill up once a week. It becomes very cumbersome when you're getting close to empty and you get the call, sorry, pumps are down. So please, please do something because the system is just not working. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Any other public comment? We'll take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 6-0. Thank you.
No, actually,
Oh,
we're up to
7
We're up to
now.
7 now.
A full board.
This seat is now filled.
Sorry. Forgot to count.
Okay. Item C, consider awarding HGAC quote Q000144404 to Stericycle Environmental Solutions in the amount of $63,463 budgeted for purchase in the fiscal year 2017 and authorizing the city manager or designee to execute any related documents. Patrick Freerick.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council. What we're presenting today is an award to Stericycle Environmental to collect and dispose of a household hazardous waste. Safe Recycling is going to be hosting a household hazardous waste event on June the 3rd from 9 o'clock to 12 o'clock. And what this event does is it offers citizens and people in the area a way to dispose of waste that they traditionally or normally don't have any other way of disposing. Our landfill does not take this type of waste. The type of waste that we're talking about are aerosol cans, pesticides, fluorescent bulbs, paint, both latex and oil-based paint, antifreeze, anything that's potentially harmful to the environment. What we find is a lot of people will buy a home and it has products in it that nobody knows what they are. This is a way for those people to dispose of those products in a responsible manner. This is the second such event that we've hosted in 2 years. Last year it was a huge success. We shut the gates over an hour earlier than what we anticipated, just simply because we ran out of funds. This year we have an additional grant from the COG to allow us some more capacity, so we're very excited about that. Being that the city was awarded the grant from the COG, we are the funding source, and therefore we have to go through our procurement requirements for the hosting or the collection and disposal with Stericycle. So that's what I'm up here in front of you asking for your approval for today so that we can have that event June 3rd and help get rid of some of this waste, household hazardous waste that's out there in our community.
Great opportunity for people to get rid of stuff that they've been hoarding for a long time. I move to approve as presented.
I'll second. I need to ask you, now this is free to the public, correct?
It is free to the public. There is no disposal cost on this, but I will.
They have to take it.
But they do have to. They have to bring it to Safe Recycling on Warehouse Road. So I do encourage you to get there early. Like I said, the line forms very, very quickly, and we will collect waste until we run out of money. Unfortunately, we do have a finite amount of capacity for this event. So last year we had to turn people away that had waited in line for a period of time, and they weren't overly happy, but we do have some more room this year to help people out, and hopefully we can continue this event and keep it going and help get that out of our community. So,
How did you advertise this to the citizens?
so we had to get this step taken care of first. If we didn't have this done, we didn't have a method of doing the event. So we're going to be going out in social media. Safe Recycling and their board is going to be working through creating flyers and getting that out. We're going to be working with Anthony to get it out on all of our sites, our website. Lloyd Pascal is very involved. She's the director of Safe Recycling, and going on on TV and radio spots and getting it out there as quickly as we can and in as many places as we possibly can in between now and the time of the event.
Any other questions? Any public comment? And we'd have a motion by Harry, a second by Lucy. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Passes 7-0. Thank you. Item D, discussion related to commercial flights at the San Angelo Regional Airport. Lane, I think this was your item. You want to talk about
Yes,
it?
ma'am. I'd like Lou and Edward to do their discussion first, and then I can say why that I put this on the item for agenda.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, Council, and new council members. Congratulations. My name is Luis Elguezabal. I'm your airport director. And with me today, at the request of Mr. Carter, I have Edward Schulzer-White, principal with Lex Volo. He's been with us for 3 years now as our air service consultant, and I'd like him to do a little presentation and then open it up for discussion.
Good morning, Madam Mayor, members of the council. It's a real privilege to be here with you today. I think Lou has me here for two reasons. One, I was a 22-year employee of Southwest Airlines, and I was on the receiving end of a lot of presentations from cities about air service, and I understand how emotional the topic of air service is to cities. Probably the second reason Lou has me is compared to him, my name makes his look easy to pronounce, so I think that's part of the reason why he has me here. I'm not here to defend or to justify or even criticize what American has done with their schedule. There are upsides and downsides to it. What would be helpful is for us to explain real quickly what we think American was looking at and why they did what they did, and then have a discussion with you about what your options are moving forward that most likely would be successful in both the short and the long term. Does that sort of make sense? So I'll walk you through a few slides, but if this wants to be conversational, I'm more than happy to have you interrupt, jump in, whether it's for clarification or because you want to press deeper on something. So I'm going to try to keep it simple to honor your time, but I want to go as deep as you want me to go, okay? So let's see. So real quickly, what we're going to run through are these things, the root causes of what we think is going on with San Angelo versus American in the industry, and then real quickly some options and a recommendation. And you'll see that those are relatively simple because it's going to require a lot of input and understanding of the community from the community rather than from an outside expert. We're happy to facilitate what your options are, but it would really require a lot of understanding that could only be applied locally if it's to be effective. During the last several years, something unusual happened. And what you can see on the screen here is these areas here where what we call ASMs or available seat miles, that's the capacity measure the industry uses. That growth exceeded in these years GDP growth, which is unusual. As you can see from previous years here, here, and here, GDP growth, gross domestic product growth, was greater than or equal to seat growth. So that's typically what we've seen since the 2007 to 2008 recession, where seats have grown much more slowly than the economy has grown. What was different about these years here in 2015 and 16 was as the airlines were beginning their planning cycle, which typically is about 12 months before the schedule is actually operationalized or actually people are flying it. They look at various factors, and one of them is fuel. And at this point, when they were planning for 2015 and 2016 schedules, fuel was in a free fall. It was falling down from its heights of $100 or so a barrel and was heading down towards 30 at the beginning of 2016. So as airlines were looking at that fuel price, they said there is some additional flying that we can do that is less risky than it has been, so we can afford to outgrow the economy for a couple of years, and that's exactly what they did. That changed in 2017 when they started planning 2017. As you're aware, fuel hit bottom of around $30 a barrel in January of 2016. For the rest of the year, jet fuel prices went up about 60%. So when they started planning 2017 capacity, they were looking at a much stronger fuel headwind that made marginal flying or additional flying less attractive, and so they cut back on their growth. So you can see that in 2017, returning to the historical norms, now GDP growth is outpacing airline capacity growth. So that's part of what we're dealing with here, not only in San Angelo, but in cities across the country. And I got ahead of myself. So this is what shows as jet fuel looking forward was rising relative to what they expected. They cut back their capacity plans or their capacity growth plans. A quick review of some passenger statistics to show that really what's happening in San Angelo is of a piece with what's happening throughout West Texas and other peer airports around Texas. And in fact, actually, San Angelo is outperforming on a passenger traffic basis a lot of its peers. I won't belabor these, but you can see anywhere from 15% reduction in Wichita Falls down to 3% in San Angelo and a few other airports. But we're at sort of the high end of the spectrum here relative to what other similarly situated airports are facing. And what we're going to get into the next couple of slides before we pitch it back to you for questions and any discussion, the industry after 2008 became very concerned about investing additional capacity. Previously, they had grown a lot into market share, but after the recession and the fuel price spike of 2007 and 8, they got very stingy with capacity. And essentially what they do is they look at markets in one of two ways. They want to know what's our expected profitability in a city, and what's our expected strategic value. So there might be some cities where we're looking for immediate strategic or immediate price benefit, where we know we can get a better financial performance out of additional capacity. Orange County, California is sort of a stereotypical example of that because it's a very wealthy community with limited capacity because of the way its airports run. You add a seat there, chances are you're going to do better there financially in the short run than almost any place else. Other cities like Orlando or Las Vegas, maybe not as strong on a revenue standpoint, but the airlines have strategic reasons for wanting to invest there because of what their passenger demand is, so they're willing to accept, in the short run, maybe less financial result for a longer strategic benefit. And then there's some cities that are able to deliver both. cities up here in this quadrant that are large cities, network hubs, international destinations, God bless you, where they can get both a long-term strategic benefit and a short-run revenue benefit versus the alternatives, because airplanes obviously are mobile. So airlines have the ability to move them around pretty fast, and they do so. Airports that can meet none of these criteria, either a stronger than expected revenue benefit or a strong long-term strategic benefit, tend to be down here in quadrant 3, and that frankly is most airports in the country. Ones that don't have a particularly strong revenue case to make to the airline and that don't have a particularly strong strategic benefit to the airline. Most West Texas airports are in this bucket. And I have to be quick to say this is not based on any particular airline's network matrix. They all have one, usually much more complicated than this. One airline I know has a 32 bucket strategy matrix. So this is a very simplified version to help people understand how airlines look at cities. So if you can't provide a stronger than average revenue benefit or a stronger than average strategic benefit over time, you're falling into this bucket down here in the bottom left, quadrant 3, where basically airlines are looking to limit capacity, to maximize their profitability, and to improve or fund capacity elsewhere. Does that sort of make sense? Okay. And obviously we feel that San Angelo is in quadrant 3, but you're not alone in that. Most U.S. airports are. So the question is, if San Angelo is in quadrant 3, what do we do about it? Right, so the first thing is to acknowledge the facts, and then to determine either to accept them or to change them. And so before we get into what your options are, and we're almost through here, we've done a quick look at, and it's not in the deck because we didn't finish it till yesterday, but we've done a quick look at why we think American made the decision that they made. It looks to us from our own analysis using Department of Transportation data that the change from 4 flights to 3, while upgauging aircraft from 50 seats per aircraft to 65, resulting in essentially flat capacity, reduced their operating costs here at San Angelo by about 16 to 17%, while offering the same number of seats. Furthermore, by the flights that they eliminated and the one that they replaced it with lead to an increase in the number of flights per departure that San Angelo residents can connect to at DFW. So the 2 flights that were eliminated connected on average to 15 out of the top 20 markets from San Angelo over DFW. The replacement flight connects to 19 of the 20, and the one it doesn't connect to, Laughlin, Nevada, is one that American doesn't serve out of DFW. So all of the top destinations from DFW that American serves that San Angelo residents demand are accessible on these new flights. So the combination of the reduction in the unit cost of operating the flight and the increase in the connectivity over DFW, their main hub, is probably what drove their decision. Okay? So then the question is, if those are the facts, then we have to accept them or change them. And that's what really this comes down to, and this is our last slide. There are 3 basic options. You can either accept the status quo and just let the market mature and evolve on its own and take whatever growth or changes organically come your way. You can reach out to American and other airlines to try to understand how they look at San Angelo and what things that are within our control that we can do differently or better to help them overperform their expectations. Because the surest way for most communities to grow their air service, if they're not strategic to an airline, is to affect the market in such a way that the airlines see results that outperform what they expected. And when they see that, the network planners say, something's going on in San Angelo, we need to consider adding capacity. So that's one way. And the other way is, when we say passenger marketing, really what that comes down to is how do we increase demand from the passenger side for San Angelo Air Service? And there's any number of ways that communities can and have done that. And obviously we're recommending that unless you're okay with the status quo, that you pursue some combination of these 2. And really the bulk of that effort is either in this room or in this town. We're available as a resource to help facilitate it, but ultimately this is a discussion about what San Angelo is willing to do for itself to improve its position over time with the airlines and with passengers. And there is, barring something we haven't foreseen, there probably is not a quick fix, because for the past several years we had $500,600,000 to incentivize an airline to come here and serve a second hub, and we were unsuccessful. That's gone now. And in a way, that's a good thing because it clarifies what's in front of us, right? The options that remain are to engage in discussions with the airlines to understand how they look at the market, and then try to affect that to deliver more of the kinds of passengers that they want to serve that help them be more profitable. And in a nutshell, that's what, however you execute it, that's what we would recommend that you do.
Thank you. The reason I put this on the agenda because I view, and I know a lot of people view this the same way, as a potential economic impact because of the accessibility. And I'm not saying that if I wasn't the CEO of American that I wouldn't have done the same thing. You've seen the decrease in the number of passenger load, so you compensate by bringing in less flights, but that you can still handle what you have been doing per day. So now, how do we respond? And I choose to change it. I don't know what else the rest of the council is looking, but we can use this as the precedence for others. Forming a response team with COSA DC, the Chamber, the CVB, Airport Advisory Board, both of their boards, McLaughlin Advertising, who has been doing a good job. I've been hearing it on the radio all over, every time I turn it on. And also maybe if we can look to see if we can pull American in on it for their advertising dollars to see if they could go in partnership with us as this market in San Angelo. We could, serve as a key point for other cities to look at, to say, look what San Angelo is doing, instead of just accepting status quo. We put those two together and make this work. Accessibility is one huge option for businesses coming in. One thing we're lacking is an interstate, and if we decrease flights, then I don't know what the outcome is. I want this to work, but council direction, if they're on board with me to go along to figure out what we can do as a city, as an airport, to grow economically.
A couple of questions that I have, Ed, Lou, either one or both. Do we have any idea from any data that you all either have or have access to what additional capacity or emplanements, maybe the better word, what additional emplanements may be in a surrounding area that might come to San Angelo that don't now come to San Angelo?
I think Tommy's on to a comment I was going to make, and that is that we certainly know a lot of passengers here in San Angelo go to Abilene, Midland, Austin, or San Antonio to catch flights. What I don't hear of is anyone from Midland, Abilene, San Antonio, or Austin coming here to catch a flight. And so that's a trend we have to look at and say, we've got to figure out what the easy answer or the tough questions to ask in terms of what we have to do in terms of service to get more people using, because it's about passenger load, and I don't believe that we, the city of San Angelo, are going to have the capacity to take on American Airlines and change their minds. What we can change is the usage of our airport and airlines. So how do we do that? And we've got to dissect it and say, what are the issues that make people go to these other airlines, and what do we need to do, or airports, and change that trend. That's the number one thing that I think we have to nail down and try to change.
Yeah, we have the ability to get the data that shows that. We did that actually in the initial engagement a couple of years ago, so the data are a little bit dated, but it's certainly something we could update.
I can tell you from experience, the reason that I go to Midland is the fact that it's a direct flight. It's Southwest. You don't have to go to Dallas to go to, Vegas. It goes straight from Midland to Vegas. And I think that a lot of people are doing that because by the time that you get through paying for a ticket to leave from San Angelo there, it's not cheap because it's $100 per person or $150 per person. That's $350. So really, if you drive and you come back, is it inconvenient? Yes, it is. But the fact remains that you do end up saving a little bit of money. So I don't think that I can see Midland and people around the surrounding areas, Midland or Abilene, come to San Angelo to take a flight. It isn't going to happen.
Can we also look for the data to see once they leave SJT and get DFW, do the majority go east or the majority go west?
Yeah, we actually have the data. I don't have it on top of my head, but the top 20 destinations are scattered. But some of the larger ones are Atlanta, New York, Baltimore, Washington, both airports. So a lot of it is east. But Los Angeles shows up, Vegas shows up, Phoenix shows up.
Seattle.
I don't remember if Seattle's in the top 20, but if not, it's close. But it is the bulk of it's east, but there's a significant representation to the west, which is not surprising.
Maybe in theory, if the majority of people that are leaving to drive to Midland are catching that direct flight to go west instead of avoiding going to DFW first, then back. Maybe we can look at that to see if we're drawing that, if they're drawing that market from us. Maybe if we open up a market to put a direct flight through American, if their numbers look satisfying.
I mean, the only thing I can tell you from the past, and again, these are dated, but the percentage of passenger traffic that was actually diverting from people who live in San Angelo proper and then surrounding areas who logically, if you will, would use San Angelo instead of a competing airport, the vast majority of them, roughly 90%, were actually using San Angelo. So the amount of what the industry calls leakage was actually relatively small, considering what the options are. And you're right, it's unlikely you're going to persuade someone from Midland or Abilene to come here, but there are areas, population in between those two places where we call the swing zones, between here in Midland or here in Abilene, where there might be the opportunity to influence people to choose toward San Angelo instead of toward Abilene or Midland. So
Well, if the
certainly
leakage
the opportunity there.
If the leakage is only 10%, that's a very small piece of the pie. So saying that, what it also says to you that the only way we can change the dynamics here is to get more jobs, more opportunities, more businesses here who utilize the airport and the airline, because 10% is small.
You are correct. And that data, too, is almost 3 years old now, so we would have to take a look at it again.
You're absolutely right, Madam Mayor. Nothing will get the airlines to notice and to look at San Angelo as a better opportunity in the future than they see it today than your ability to tell them a story about economic growth that hasn't yet shown up in their passenger traffic. So if you can tell them about the job creation and other things that are going on or efforts that you're taking to try to attract it, even if it doesn't have an immediate payoff or payback, certainly is something that will help change their narrative. And very few airports or cities do that. Most go to the airline and say, look, here's the airline data that you already have, and we think you should fly 3 times a day from our city to Timbuktu. Well, the airlines already have the data, and they've already decided not to do it. It doesn't work. The ones that succeed, both in changing how the airlines look at you as a business partner and ultimately change their capacity, is by telling the airlines a story that they can't see in the data they already have.
Lane, I think you're onto something, at least in my mind, to work cooperatively with Lou and Ed and American Airlines to see if we can't identify some of those things that may help American Airlines, but in turn help our community. So what would it take for us to just can we direct staff to start working towards that? What do you need from us, Lou?
You can. We'll look for direction to staff on start working with this and engage Edward for it. I know 4 of you have indicated that you want to be part of this action team. However, having 4 council members in one meeting calls for all their issues. So I would look at the council and you decide amongst yourselves who you want in that committee so we don't exceed that threshold limit, Ryan.
That's right.
Okay.
I can bow out. I simply think that I wanted to make sure that we had more than one council person, and Lane could, he was lead on this, but with new blood in the stream, I'll let some of these people take the lead on it.
Then I'll have Tommy and Lane. I'm going to have you work with city manager and staff to come up with a game plan to look at what we can do here.
Okay. Glad to.
We'll also say this. Some of the leisure travel that Lucy mentioned about going west is a valid concern, and you may not be able to ever market that out, but the bottom line is there are people sitting in this room right now today that have businesses, and their employees fly out on a regular basis, and they need to be back to their families and to their jobs in a relatively short period of time. They're not going to be willing to travel to Midland or Austin to fly somewhere. So we got to figure out how to accommodate that particular group also.
And there could be some businesses that are directly affected by this that we need to engage them as well. So this could be a real opportunity for us, in my opinion, to maybe grow.
Clock Plus sitting there, Scott Turner.
Yep. So
Would not hurt if we also had a conversation with Goodfellow, because I know that they, about 10% of the passengers that come in here actually are directed to Goodfellow, in and out.
I've spoke with Colonel Downs, and he's on board with helping as much as he legally can. He'll have his governmental attorney with him probably the majority of the time to see how much he can be involved. But
And you're right, our traffic, 10% of our traffic is Goodfellows.
So with 22 years of experience in this, surely you've seen a small city like ours go through this before. What solutions have you seen that have been successful?
Well,
have there been any?
Yeah, if you look at what's happened to boardings and capacity at small cities since 2007, small hubs and non-hubs in particular have been pretty significantly affected. Don't mean to get into airline lingo. The ones that have not done well are the ones that have tried to fight the airlines or use airline data to pitch back at them the story they already know. The ones that do better in terms of retaining their capacity and in establishing a constructive discussion, especially the ones that have fewer airlines rather than more airlines, are the ones that do what we're saying, where they engage the airline in a discussion about, tell us how you see the market and what do you need to elevate your expectations. And those are the ones that tend to succeed. But in fairness, the reduction in capacity and employments at smaller airports around the country has been so significant in the last 10 years that to call any of them a success would be a little bit of consultant speak. So it's really which ones have minimized the damage.
Thank you.
Also, the consolidation of airlines, where we had so many down to 4 that manage close to 85% of the traffic.
Any other comments, questions, statements?
Do we need, is this?
There's not a vote. It's just a
direct staff
conversation.
to begin the conversation? Good.
We already have direction. It's to get Tommy and Lane. And we do have a group of stakeholders that we feel that definitely we need to be invited. And you mentioned Goodfellow Air Force Base. That's one of the groups as well.
Scott Turner, you're here. Is Scott Turner still here? Do you want to comment on anything, or would you like to be a part of the conversation? I can hardly see above this thing. I need to get a taller seat.
I'm Scott Turner with Time Clock Plus. I want to be mindful of everybody's time. It's kind of gone long anyway, so I don't want to jump in if we don't have to. But as a company that represents about well over 500 flights a year, air travel is very important to our business. And we're the kind of business that does business outside of San Angelo and brings those dollars in. So the economic impact is big for us. So we're willing to help in any way we can. I agree, fighting the airlines is a terrible idea. We're just not going to win. Exactly. But we can work with them as a partner, and we can create a strategy. You know, the community's growing. Goodfellow Air Force Base is growing. We have ASU is growing. So we should have growth in air travel. So we need to look at what are we doing, or what can we do to foster that. Can we create a partnership with the community that says, maybe every now and then you don't go to Midland and you go ahead and fly out of San Angelo and show some support at the local airport. That business travel is what's going to the East Coast, right? Everybody goes to Vegas. That's West Coast. That's your leisure travel. But all the business, a lot of the business is heading east. And we send guys, I've got guys right now all over the country flying out and trying to fly back in. And reducing the number of flights hurts us. So we're willing to help in any way we can to see if we can partner with whoever, American Airlines, and bring some more flights back into us. So we're willing to help however we can.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hey, Scott, before you leave, how far in advance do your guys need to buy tickets to make sure they get the flights they want? Is that a 2-week, 3-week?
It depends. I mean, sometimes we don't get a lot of notice. It depends on the market, depends on our clients. Sometimes we're buying tickets day of. Sometimes we're buying tickets 2 or 3 weeks in advance. If we can plan it, we'd love to plan way ahead of time if we can. But I'd say on average it's probably 2 or 3 weeks.
That's important. Thank you, Scott.
Yeah. Anything we can do to help.
Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
All right. Item number 10, follow-up and administrative issues. Consider items discussed in executive session. We don't have an executive session today, so nothing there. consider the schedule of upcoming meetings. Was there a discussion on the July 4th meeting that we needed to have?
Yes.
Okay.
Just wanted to put that up to y'all's decision as a new council. We wanted to wait until everyone was sworn in. If you want to hold the meeting on the 4th, and that's certainly within your, but if you don't, I think there's some reason maybe not to. We do have to have the one on the 18th because that will be 10 days after the election, and we'll need to canvass again. So I guess your options are: do you want to have one on the 11th or the 25th and have back-to-back meetings? That's really up to y'all. In the past, when something like this has come up, we've had one meeting in the month. Plus, there's an additional, there's budget hearing that might be needed in August, and so you might have 3 meetings in August anyway. So I think putting one meeting in July might help that load overall. So.
And just while we're talking about scheduling, Morgan Chegwood and Budget Manager, we are looking at August, the opportunity to have a budget workshop. We've tentatively scheduled a date of August 22nd in that we've reserved this room. I do want y'all to have time to check your calendars and be aware of what works best for y'all. So for August 22nd would be the proposed date as a half day for us to focus on budget and get into some detail. We have an alternative date of August 8th if that works best for y'all. So that's the Tuesdays that we're not meeting. That's the 2nd and 4th Tuesdays in August. So it's not mandatory that y'all would make a decision today. While we were talking about scheduling, I thought it made sense to not just look, 4 weeks out. Let's look 8 weeks out and beyond and know what's coming up this summer.
And it does help as we start planning those things to, if you are willing to make a decision today, it does help us in planning.
Okay. Do I have comment from board?
I really don't think that most people will be here on July 4th.
That's my guess.
Brenda says, I mean.
We could have it at the lake and a barbecue.
Yeah, right.
So what was the date, the 11th?
July 18th, we will need to have one, and so I guess, if that's acceptable to y'all, we could have one meeting in July and then have 3 meetings in August, one of them to be a budget hearing on either the 8th or the 22nd, according to y'all's schedule. And if we don't necessarily need a vote, just y'all's direction to look at that would be fine, and I just need that direction.
I would like to have one meeting in July. I'd like to look at August 8th as a potential budget meeting, if we think we can be prepared for that. Morgan? Or is the 22nd more in line with what you think you're going to need for?
We will certainly be available for whatever's y'all's schedule. August 22nd does give us a little bit more time with the certified values for the property tax. We get those figures July 25th from the appraisal district. It takes us usually a week to weed through that information and get useful data back to y'all. So August 8th would be a little tight for us, but we would make it happen for sure. August 22nd was our original proposal, but either date works for us.
Okay. Any comments?
Are we just trying to avoid the week of the 4th in July, or, and excuse my not knowing, do we have to have it on a Tuesday? Can we go on a Monday? Or?
By city charter, it's the first and third Tuesday. But you can certainly call a special meeting if there was a desire to do that. I think having this discussion in far enough advance where we're having it right now, it gives staff the ability to plan so that it's not needed to have 2 meetings, and they just need to know that if we're going to have one meeting in July.
It might make our last June meeting more information and a longer meeting, but I think if we can use that as a game plan, we'll just plan for
Morgan, let me ask you a question. Morgan, is there a good reason for us to go ahead and meet, and people are going to start throwing stuff at me, I realize, but on the 8th and the 22nd, is there information that would be helpful to us to receive on the 8th, even though you might not have had ample time to work through the appraisal district info? Should we meet on the 8th and the 22nd?
We absolutely can. We've built a framework of communications where we're going to start sending y'all stuff in Friday memos. We are going to be before you in regular meetings, and so there's going to be lots of time for dialogue, but that is a good way to plan ahead because as we get into September 1st, we do have a lot of deadlines, and it's harder to make changes at that point. So we want to make it August 8th. Go ahead and meet and see how much more data we have and just tentatively schedule both dates. I can talk for a long time. I'd be glad to share with y'all whatever depth of detail y'all have the appetite to hear. So that's a suggestion for sure.
We have a lot of new council members and a mayor, and I think this is going to be an issue that we really want to dive into, get involved in. So I think if we use the 8th as an initial meeting and the 22nd out there as a follow-up meeting, I know it's my first session going through the budgets, and I'm sure I'm going to have a lot of questions, and we've got a lot of new people, so probably ought to tentatively schedule both of those at this point, and if we don't need them, don't think it's necessary, but let's schedule it that way.
We would have some follow-up, could have some follow-up on the 15th regular council meeting also if there were some questions. That's typically what we've done in the past. So having potential for 4 Tuesday meetings in August probably is more than we need. I love you folks to death, but having 4 meetings with you in one particular month, I don't know about that.
It's our first budget meeting altogether, and I think it's going to take some time and energy, and I'm prepared to sit hand in hand with all of you 4 Tuesdays in the month of August.
Me too. In the old days, we used to meet every week anyway, so.
There you go. Any other comment?
Okay, so we're down to 1 meeting in July, correct?
As I have it currently, yes.
Sounds good to me.
Right.
Okay.
Announcements and consideration of future agenda items.
I have a question. Once we get through the budget time and into the fall, I wonder if it would be helpful if we would have just a workshop meeting once a month, no action items, but to give us a little time to ask all the questions that need to be asked to maybe make us more efficient on the official meeting day. That's just a thought after earlier today. So I realize that's additional on the staff. It's additional on the council. Our school board does that. So it's just a thought for y'all's consideration.
Tommy, I think you bring up a valid point. After the July election, most people on this, well, Lucy will be senior with two years. Lane and I will have 1. So I think, from that perspective, we could probably utilize that time to mold like ideas, bounce ideas off of one another, and actually learn some things that I know Lane and I are still getting up to speed, and I presume that in some cases Lucy is. So I'd be willing to do that.
And it wouldn't have to be more than 1 a month, but have just 1 workshop a month, and just kind of throw everything at us that may be coming at the 2 council meetings that month, but no action other than let's just talk through it. I mean, obviously, it's an open meeting. It's televised. The public's invited. The media. It's just a regular meeting, but there's not going to be any action taken.
I think it's a great idea.
And you were saying to add that after we get through the budget process.
Let's go ahead and get through the budget. Y'all are going to have plenty to do between now and the time we get through budget. Starting now, I realize. So
well, I'd like to. I'm going to interject in that. I actually think we need to do it prior to the budget, because the budget should be the net result of some of the things that we might discuss and come up with. So my idea would be that we do some meetings prior to the budget discussions to make sure that we agree on priorities and direction, and then make sure the budget reflects our priorities and our direction. So I think we need to do it prior to budgeting. Otherwise, they're not going to be in sync.
We'll do what y'all want us to do, and there's some wisdom in that as well as far as discussing those items prior. And I'll work with Teresa to make sure we're doing it right, we're doing it legally. Charlotte, I'm sorry, I know you kind of...
No, I was waiting for agenda items. I was just I would like to request either this Friday or next Friday an update in our Friday packet is to the Sherwood Way road construction, if they're on target, on schedule, an update. I don't know if any of y'all have noticed, but the framework is up in the air for the new HEB, and I had made the statement if they're not careful, the new store's going to be open before we finish the road work out there. So I would like an update as to where we're at and what we're pushing for.
We'll get it on the Friday packet, absolutely.
And also on the auditorium.
Okay.
That's been a long project for me, and I just would kind of like to push for an update as to what we look like our ribbon cutting is going to be.
Okay, we'll get that to you.
Thank you.
We have a lot of new members, including me, who would like an update on the Ford Ranch. I know there's a lot of discussion about it. I know there's a lot of it's done, it's whatever. I'm not sure many of us new people know what that conversation is, so I think we need an update on the Ford Ranch.
We've got two items that we'd like to look at. Some citizen input for train noise. I'll share some emails with you later, but Santa Rita area and probably others, I just don't hear it from others, have excessive train noise during the night. Something just to look at. And also an ordinance maybe for steer it and clear it for wrecks on heavy traffic areas. If it's steerable, then maybe get it out of the way, talk with PD, and I know Martinez is aware of it and work about that.
Now, the Nixle thing's not working, and that's another concern of mine, is talking about looking forward to is it's the season, bad season, tornado warnings, and I have gotten phone calls and emails all the way from the Carolinas so disappointed at us not fixing our sirens, but I do know that this last month, first of the month, did not get a Nixle warning myself, as all clear, and got one at 3 a.m. this morning on my TV. But
we didn't abandon the working sirens, did we?
Yes, and I
did.
Didn't like it, but the money's not there.
So if those are working, can we still utilize those?
They're not working.
Or the ones that do?
I'd have to check with the chief. I know he discussed as far as the repairs necessary. I mean, we went a little bit into that. The cost necessary to do that was just too high for antiquated equipment. Really, I mean, we have equipment out there right now that perhaps could work. I'm not sure as far as the logistics. I'd have to meet with the chief and find out if
I know the one by my house I heard on the first of the month.
Okay.
So the ones that are still actively going.
You're saying just let them keep them active.
Just keep them active, and maybe we can look at later on once we have money in the budget for.
Okay, let's not get into too much discussion on that though, but let me look into that, okay?
I would also, I think in the last executive session, perhaps there was a discussion about the RFP on the Edgewater Inn property. I'd like that to come back up for discussion, either an executive session or agenda item. And I also would like on the industrial parks, there was discussion about the step 2 or step 1, step 2, or phase 1, phase 2. I'd like complete updates, P&Ls on the industrial park, and a big picture in terms of what all that is.
Okay.
Well, we've got a full agenda going forward, don't we?
We really do.
Wow. Okay, any other comments, additions, changes, input?
Should we have all that on July 4th?
Yeah.
Just one other
With
item I
fireworks
had.
going
The staff loves you, Lane.
Created a quarterly report with reference to the water rates. Where's Tina? I hope that continues as to what our expenses have been versus the income on our rate step plan. And it's about time to have that quarterly report, so I do want to encourage that we get it, please.
Okay.
Before I leave, for parts of no water.
One last chance to add anything else to this long list.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
It's all in favor.
Aye.
Another 7-0. Let's go.